Transmission start. Welcome to Where Did the Road Go? Join us as we wander off the path and explore lost history, consciousness, the paranormal, unexplained mysteries, alternative thought, and much more. We are present on the web at wheredidtheroadgo.com. Now here is your host, Soraya.
All right, so here's a show for you that was totally not planned in any way, shape, or form. Joshua and I were on Radio Misterioso earlier this week, or last week, depending on when I'm airing this. But we were on there with Michael Hughes as well, and Michael and Greg left, and Joshua and I decided, hey, we have some time, why don't we do another show? Just as we were getting ready to do this, Roejen from Project Archivist had messaged me, telling me he had a story to tell me about something that happened to him. So I invited him on the show, and the three of us did this sort of spontaneous, subjectless show here that you're going to hear. This is about 2.5 hours long. We start off talking about Roejen's weird experience. We get into psychic abilities, psychics, belief, things like that. Eventually it goes into Roejen's experiences with possession and some other weird things that happened to him early on in his life. And from there, I believe we transition into talking about things like data mining and how companies can have such a science as to how they pick out the information about you and sell you stuff, which then also touches a little into politics as well, and how the political system uses the same thing to generate certain ways of looking at things. In the end, I forget even where we ended up, honestly, but this is truly a where did the road go type of an interview. It is all over the place. It's totally free form. There was no plan going into this. I hope you enjoy it, and yeah, here we go. All right, so I'm here with Roejen from Project Archivist. Hello, Roejen.
Hello.
And I'm here with a stranger named Joshua Kachian.
Hey man, my name has been butchered at TGI Fridays a lot more than that, so don't worry about it. Joshua Kuchin is what I get a lot.
I'm guilty of writing Crutchin, but I know it's not Crutchin. I think my fingers just like putting an R in your name.
Cruttenden, yeah.
Cruttenton, yeah.
Kuchine.
At least your name is not Cruttenton, because Walter Cruttenton, I've heard such massacres of that poor guy's name.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can, or maybe I can't.
So, Roejen, you had just messaged me and said you had an interesting story using something I told you.
I don't know how interesting it's going to be, but I ride motorcycles. I'll try to spice the story up to make it somewhat interesting. I ride a BMW K100 motorcycle. It's a 1985. It's been my first motorcycle, and I've had it for a while now, but I've been wanting to switch over to a more of a Harley-style motorcycle without being the Harley, the way you sit on a Harley and all that. I don't like Harleys because the little air thing on the side smacks into my thighs, so I find them uncomfortable. So I'm like, man, I would really like to get me some kind of a Honda or something that's going to ride for a while, but I just don't have any money for it. I haven't had any money or whatever. So I've been going through and looking on Facebook and going through and looking on Craigslist and all this stuff and just perusing, whatever, just looking to see what's out there. And finally, I remember it was either the show that when you were on my show, I think it was when I was on your show with Ritzman, and you had talked about, you said, hey, I need $2,000, and the universe kind of aligned itself in some way to give you $2,000.
Right.
So I was driving around at work just thinking about, I'm like, you know what? I want another motorcycle. This is the kind of motorcycle that I would like to get my hands on. Then I more or less forgot about it because, like, hey, that's going to happen. A couple of days later, I was at work and I stopped by one of the places that I deliver stuff to. And lo and behold, there is a 1997 Honda Shadow motorcycle sitting out in front. And the guy's got a sign on it for like $3,000. And a nice old guy, I'm talking to him and stuff. And he's like, yeah, I can't ride anymore. I just want to get rid of it and everything, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, I'd buy it off you if I had the money. He's like, yeah, long story short, he drops it down to $1,000. And I'm like, I still can't buy it. I don't have that money on me right now or what have you. Fast forward a couple of days later, I'm out hanging out with some members of the family and stuff. And a buddy of mine drives by that particular motorcycle and sends me a picture on his cell phone saying, "Hey, there's this bike here that you've been looking for." And the guy is, he said he's willing to drop the price down. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't have $1,000. So a member of my family looks up and says, "How much do you need?" I said, "About $1,000. And I said, I don't have it right now. He goes, "I got it. I'll let you borrow it." And I'm like, "What?" And this was totally out of the blue completely. And I'm like, I don't know, And he says, "Yeah, don't worry about it. We'll take care of it later. I'll give you the $1,000. And I'm like, well, so then there was the cost of getting insurance switched over and getting it plated and stuff like that. It would have been over $1,000. So I go talk to the guy, and this is the story starts getting really strange. I go and talk to the guy, meet up with him. And I'm like, yeah, I want to get it, but I just can't, I've got 1,000, but, I'm looking at it, I'm like, it's got this wrong with, I'm kicking the tires and I'm offering bids and stuff and counter bids. Little to my knowledge, as I was looking at that, there was another gentleman that had went there with $1,000 cash and was standing there with a Ziploc bag full of money. And as I'm talking to the old gentleman, I'm like, yeah, but this is messed up. It's going to need tires and stuff. It's looking at $200 to fix it. He goes, "I'll sell it to you for $850. And I'm like, all right, sold. So the other gentleman that was there was going to actually pay him $1,000. He looks at him. He's like, "I would have paid you $1,000 for that motorcycle." And he's like, "Yeah, but I really want to sell it to him for some reason. I don't know. And the guy's like, "I'm going to give you more money for the motorcycle. I don't understand." He's like, here, it's in my hand right here. No questions asked. I'll give you $1,000. He's like, "Nah, the deal's done. It's over with. I'm going to sell it to him." And he goes, "On top of that, I didn't know you were standing there." And the guy's sitting there with the money in his hand, looking at us like, "Hi." So the guy looks at me and he looks at his wife and he just walks away. And we're sitting there and I'm like, wow, I'm thinking, I don't believe I just did this, And I end up, getting the bike and signing the title and all that kind of stuff. And the guy signing the paperwork, he's like, "I don't even know why the hell I'm doing this. That guy would have paid me more money than you are." He's like, he would have gave me $150, $200 more than what you're paying me. And I'm looking at him like, yeah, I'm like, but we'd already signed the titles and stuff. And I'm like, you're not going to take
decision, buddy.
Yeah. And I'm just staring. I'm as awestruck as well. And I'm like, why? I'm not even using like any Jedi mind tricks or whatever. And he just says, "Yeah, I'll sell. You know what? Here, just take it. I want to sell it to you for $850. Go ahead and get out of here. Have a nice day." And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, is Ashton Kutcher sitting in a van somewhere with a camera, like going to jump out and punk me or something?
So he was like, "Republic Chris doesn't work around here. Only money."
It was so bizarre. Everything just slotted itself to fall into place to get this motorcycle. It's in the shop right now. It needs more work, but everybody that I've showed it to, every single person I've showed it to, every place that I've gone to and talked to people about it, they're like, "You paid how much for this?" Because it's really beautiful bike. It's spotless. And they're like, "How much did you pay for it?" I'm like, $850. So like, "How did you do that?" I'm like, "I don't know." I asked for it and it appeared, and then somebody let me borrow some money that I wasn't expecting to. And they're still like, what's that?
But you asked for it, but you didn't like obsess over it. Right?
I kind of did, and I was obsessing up and more or less. I'm like, man, I really like to get something different. I'd really like to get something different. And the kicker of it all is after I got it and rode it home, I really didn't like it. I was like, man, I really don't even like this bike. My wife's like, "Well, what are you going to do?" I'm like, "Well, I could probably flip it and make $3,000 off of it." And then as I rode it more and more people I talked to were like, "No, you need to keep that bike. And you need to get rid of that bike." And I said, "Yeah, but that motorcycle was more comfortable. It's my first bike and stuff." They're like, "Yes, but you are a rather Rubenesque, large-boned, and fairly portly individual. This motorcycle is more fitting to what you need." It's growing on me, and it's so many people have said you need to keep this bike that I'm just going to keep it, I think, at this point and sell the other one. But it was just really, really bizarre the whole time. Every step in this process, the whole process, I'm like, what the hell is going on here?
You were supposed to have and then that bike.
I guess so. And the guy's like, "Yeah, sir, I'm going to pay you $1,000. He's like, "Yeah, but I want to sell it to him for $850. And the guy's just sitting there like, he's just got this like combination look of dazed, confused, and anger on his face. Like all of these emotions were smashing together at once. And I'm sitting there like, hi. He's like, "Nah, I want to sell it to him. I want that guy to have it,
Yeah, that's strange.
And then afterwards, oh yeah, this is the last thing. Right before I left, the guy calls up, his buddy calls him up. him on the phone and says, my friend was just there to buy that bike for $1,000 and you sold it to somebody else for $850. Why did you do that? And he was pretty much yelling at the guy on the phone. I could hear him. He's like, sir, it's a done deal. The transaction's over with. The bike is gone. He's like, why did you do that? I don't understand. What we even paid you more money. He says, yeah, but I just didn't want to sell it. I wanted to give it to this guy for $850. And he goes, well, my friend didn't even have a chance to talk to you. He's like, well, yeah, I guess so. And then he hung up the phone and he goes, I don't know why I'm doing this. And I'm like, I gotta go now.
Man, you must be the world's best pickup artist.
No, I'm not. No, not at all. No. But on the way home, I was thinking about it, and I'm like, I was just like, I just pulled a Soraya. I just went, I want to have this. Please give this to me. And out of nowhere, the whole thing went down in a process of 2 days. I saw it, and the next day my buddy sent it to me, and then I talked to the guy, and then I had a motorcycle.
That's kind of awesome.
Yeah, it was. Like if your buddy looked at you and said, hey, can I have $1,000 to go get a motorcycle, and I'm not sure how long it's going to take me to pay you back, would you give your buddy or family member $1,000 and just say, yeah, here, don't worry about it? No, probably not.
I guess it would depend.
But that's my story. That was, I'm still at this point right now. When the guy is sitting there going, I've got more money I will give you. And the guy's just like, no.
That's the uncanny part.
No, and I'm not even sitting there. I'm not going, you don't want to take his money. You want to sell them. I'm not even doing that. I'm just sitting there going, hi, I'm fat. I'm just, that was what really threw me. And then when I get in the van, my wife's hearing a lot of this stuff go down, and she's just looking at me like, you've got a knack to you. And I'm like, I'm not. All I did was tell the guy this needs fixed and that needs fixed. I don't know if I guilted him into it or what. I don't know.
Well, without the details, and Soraya, correct me if I'm wrong, please, but it almost seems like your intention put a magical sort of hex on him.
Yeah.
It's like you willed him to do this. It wasn't like you influenced fate, like you influenced him. And I know you're saying no, and I agree with that. Like on the surface, no. Like
sure, where was this in high school when I needed chicks?
I would say,
right. But
I would say that you were supposed to have that bike for a very good reason. We may never understand the reason, but there's something that's going to happen because you got that bike.
Yeah, I might die.
Maybe.
you're gonna save a burning truckload full of puppies on that bike. It's gonna be like Chris Pratt in Jurassic World, who wasn't through.
Or I'll be like the guy in Anchorman and get a burrito thrown in my face. Who knows? So yeah, that's my story, and I just wish I had these magical powers when I was back in high school for chicks, that would have, or that would have been so much better than getting my butt smacked around by the jocks,
That's wild.
Huh.
Yeah, yes, it's like I've been telling the abbreviated story because most people just aren't going to believe that part of it. I just say, yeah, I talked the guy down, blah, 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 blah. I don't add the part that there's a guy sitting there with a Ziploc bag full of money looking like a Colombian drug dealer, So.
Wow.
Anyways.
and at least you didn't have to kill a deer. Exactly.
Well, see, the thing is, if I'd have killed a deer, I'd have been like, great, I get meat and a car and 2,000, in this situation, if I'd have gotten the bike and the deer, that would have been even better because I would have been like, hey, I can process this and now I've got food. But, that's me. I'm weird.
and I don't really eat much meat, so.
That's okay. That's more for me.
No, it's more for us, Roejen.
No, I admire vegetarians very much. Vegans, I do. Are you a vegan or just a vegetarian?
I'm not even technically a vegetarian. I will eat small amounts of meat. Like I like pepperoni on pizza and stuff. I just don't like meat for the most part.
My youngest daughter became a vegetarian this year, and I was okay with it. So.
My problem, and I'm going to offend somebody, so I apologize in advance, but some of my best friends, I went to school in Madison, Wisconsin. Some of my best friends are vegans, and I had the same conversation with them. It's like, if you're doing the vegan thing not for dietary reasons, but for moral reasons, it's hard to draw a line because what's your belt made out of? What are your shoes made out of? There's a certain...
There's also a high level of pretentiousness to vegans.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
So
Whereas,
I'll say sometimes. But because I do agree with that. Like sometimes it's like if you were to have an omnivorous person were to sit down with a vegan and act the way that a vegan acts around someone who's eating meat, they'd be like, "Oh God, salad! I just want to throw up. How can you eat that?" Like
you've seen that hippie guy that makes fun of those. That guy made that video.
yeah,
You're eating the food of
maybe
my
that's
food.
what I just saw. It's on your timeline. Yeah.
Yeah. You're
but,
eating the food of my food, and I find that offensive.
it seems indefensible from a standpoint, and this is where I'm coming from like a Joe Rogan perspective here, but like life thrives on entropy, and something has to die at any given point. So
life feeds on life.
Yeah. So as long as you're doing what you're doing, you're not forcing your views on others. That's
that's perfectly fine. Yeah. Yeah, because I've also got friends, I had a friend that worked at a slaughterhouse for a very short period of time, and now after what he saw there, it disturbed him enough to where he doesn't want to eat meat anymore.
I can understand that.
Yeah, so can I.
Totally
And he's not like I can't eat this around you, blah blah blah. And to be honest with you, with vegetarians, it's a much healthier lifestyle by far. I've right now I'm doing the whole low carb thing, so which is kind of counter vegan, but I would eat a more vegetarian lifestyle if it was cheaper to do. Because with my younger daughter right now being a vegetarian, we've had to go out and buy like the vegetarian vegan chicken nuggets, and we try to do all that kind of stuff. And to not eat meat, like if you want to eat like the meatless hot dogs and stuff, they're a lot. They're like $5 a pack for a pack of meatless hot dogs.
Yeah.
It's hard to or the Morningstar patties, which I like a lot of the Morningstar foods, but they're not cheap and they don't go on sale very often. And if it were more affordable to eat a good tasting, and I know that I'm going to get slammed for that. Well, vegetarian food, there's a lot of good vegetarian food, but it's not as easy and it's not as readily available, for a decent price. Like the meme that's going around when they show a picture of a salad for $5 and a picture of a double cheeseburger for 99 cents. That is a problem.
Yeah. Well, and like I would argue that any industry that you're involved in personally, if someone else were to see it from the inside, they wouldn't want to be involved with it. Like exactly. The DMV, or I spent 3 years in academia. Same thing. Like you don't want to see how the sausage is made, folks. Trust me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But when you're putting that in your body, it becomes a lot more personal.
Yes.
If I had a nickel.
So one of the things I wanted to, one of the things I should follow up here, during the last show, where we talked about demonic possession, I'm not sure exactly when I'm going to air this, but when we did the show on demonic possession, I started out talking about a poltergeist encounter I had just before we did the show. And there was one more piece to that. So despite heavy things falling off shelves, my stereo cranking AC/DC on me, and my mic turning itself off while I was sitting here, my CD case that I bring to the Last Exit for the Lost also managed to open itself entirely while on the floor. And I didn't know until I picked it up. And I picked it up Saturday night to go to the show, and CDs went everywhere.
Is this an ongoing thing? Are you continuously interacting with this, or just that one time?
Just last Friday night.
Nope, it's just a Friday night for Soraya. It's a Friday.
What were you cool with this going on? Were you like, hey, could you clean up the mess or just mellow it? Okay, I know you're here. You can tone it down a little bit. I get it.
I was honestly, I was somewhat entertained, but it didn't go anywhere. So there was nothing to really, things like that don't scare me.
Yeah.
And so it was just kind of like, okay, great. You like AC/DC because that's what was cranking up on my stereo after I had muted it because I don't like AC/DC.
You should have been like, Axl Rose sings for these guys now. Watch how long it stayed on.
And the CD case was more of an annoyance because CDs literally flew across the room, and I was like, how is this open? This is impossible to be open because I couldn't have put it down where it was. If it was open, they would have fallen out.
Mm-hmm.
So it had to be unzipped on the floor, which I certainly didn't do.
How often does stuff like this happen to you? Because you've said you've had a lot of experiences and that you are a practitioner of magic.
It is completely random.
Actually, but that's a really good question. If you were to parse this, if you were to average out, because I know it's the sort of thing like you had like 3 or 4 things happen in that one night. If you were to parse this out over the course of a year, like twice a week.
I really don't know, because I also forget that things happen, honestly. And do I count like weird prophetic dreams or things like that, which also, do those count? Because those happen a lot.
Well, let's narrow it down to just physical experiences where you've had poltergeist-like experiences or lights or things like that.
If I had to divide them out, an average amount, maybe once a month.
Are you paying attention to what's going on in your life at the time?
Oh yeah,
Yes,
absolutely.
he is.
Okay.
Yeah.
And not only that, but this the night before I had a very massive burst of Kundalini that I was really worried was going to get very intensely painful, and then it just kind of dissipated, and I went, all right, that's good, thank you. I also found out, someone posted, not related to this, that there's been a lot of solar activity lately, and I know from talking with Robert Schock, he was saying that psychic abilities and stuff go up during periods of higher solar activity.
Really?
And it's like, so is that connected? Is that part of what was going on?
How would you go about documenting higher amounts of psychic activity during solar eclipses or during solar activity? I mean, how would you? Is there a hotline you can call? I'm not trying to be funny either.
No, what they did is there's a whole he wrote a whole book on it along with someone else, and what they did is they went back through different studies in laboratories of psychic ability, and then they took the solar activity charts and overlaid them, and found that the people getting the highest results were happening during solar maximums. Like when the sun was very active, not like that 7-year cycle maximum, but when there were actually solar storms hitting the Earth, the results in the laboratory were higher than chance, versus when there was no solar storms hitting the Earth, they were down closer to the chance level.
I wonder if that could also if people with quote unquote psychic abilities, because I'm leery of this of the psychic thing. I mean, I don't go out and actively campaign against it, but I wonder if in situations like Aurora Borealis, like there was just a massive Aurora Borealis display that took place up in Iceland, I believe it was, so much so that they had to shut the power off to the town because they were afraid that it was going to start short-circuiting stuff. But I wonder, because Aurora Borealis is a direct accumulation of solar activity. Yes. That's where it bounces off. So I wonder if you were to take a person with psychic abilities, or if you were to do things like, I don't know, the blind viewing or whatever, if you were to do stuff in those areas at that time, if you would have an increase in activity.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Definitely worth checking out.
That's kind of like, this is your most direct, because with solar activity, you really can't predict when it's going to, I mean, you can tell, okay, we're going to get a burst in a couple of days or whatever. But with the Aurora Borealis, you can go to where that's close to the Earth or closer, in proximity, and happens all the time, and actually try direct results on that there.
What I think is someone should take the UFO waves and line that up with solar activity and see if there's a connection.
Yeah, that too.
I feel like somebody has done something like that, but I can't remember why I think that. Yeah, that's true. That could be. Well, then again, you got
not to derail us too much.
Yeah.
No, go ahead and finish your thought. Because we're going to
not to derail us, but go ahead.
Yeah.
By saying not to derail us, you have derailed us. I was going to say that sounds a lot like the higher incidence of violence and craziness during full moons. But somebody actually they've done numerous studies on that and found that it's more or less just a wives' tale. But that depends, though. I mean, if you talk to people that work in ERs and things like that, or night nurses, they'll probably tell you otherwise.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Okay, we're derailed. Go ahead.
Okay, I was going to ask you a question, Roejen, because you know that I say this with all the love in my heart, because I think you and Lobo are real minches, real good guys. But I have to ask why you're sort of leery of the psychic thing, because in my opinion, of all the things involved in esoterica, Bigfoot, UFOs, etc., like psi phenomena is the stuff that has the most scientific backing behind it. Like, why are you sort of leery of that?
I don't know.
Not from a confrontational perspective, but just in terms of like trying to see how the other half lives. Like,
I don't know. I honestly can't answer that. And I've actually had very, very much psychic phenomena of my own happen. I don't really. I try to be very agnostic about everything for the most part, and which is odd because I've had several events happen to me from ranging from possible possessions, black dog encounters, UFO sightings, EVP.
Nice. So the gamut. Yeah.
Yeah, I've had strange out of time syncs. I've had all kinds of different things happen to me throughout my life. I have not substantially seen anything to prove to me that psychic phenomena is something that is out there. Now, having said that, I have not closed the door that it is something that is not possible. I just have not personally, even the experience that I've had with it, not come to a point where I necessarily believe that it's something that's real. Like I have things that happen in my life all the time where for a while my wife used to be, well, my wife actually, I should say, she still is kind of weirded out by it. I think it's more just becoming a thing of acceptance with her, where things will happen and I'll have an inclination or something like that about them. But I always fall back on, is this particular incident just happen to be a random chance that I picked up on? Or did this particular thing happen and it's just because I happen to be a little bit more intuitive about things and I picked up on body language or the way a person reacts or something, and that's how I came to the conclusion, or that's how what happened. I'm really weird about that. I tend to be, this is a constant battle. What's funny, you should ask this, because one of the things that I always go through, and my listeners of my show know this because I frequently talk about it, I am in this constant battle of going back and forth of the tightrope of, am I a skeptic or am I somebody that believes in this stuff? And that's the way my life works. I'm the same way with politics. I'm the same way with religion. I always, when you look at those pictures where is it two people in a loving embrace or is it two dolphins? I see both things at the same time.
So do I.
And it doesn't like want to give you a headache. You can't look at those images because it messes your head up. It's a mind screw. And that, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending how you want to look at it, is the way that I am about everything. Even when I've had encounters and things like that, unless something happens that I absolutely cannot deny that something is going on and something is happening. And even in those situations, the best I can come to is, wow, that just happened and I really, really can't explain it.
I think that's the best way to be.
It is. I really do believe it is the best way to be. So I don't fight it very much, but it does get very annoying and it does get very, very struggling. And sometimes I'll have like these little mini crises of life over that kind of stuff. The last major one that happened was when I had the UFO sighting that I was talking to you about on whatever show it was. That was one of the ones where I was going through, you know what? I don't think I believe in any of this garbage. I think most of this stuff is crap. And then boom, hey, look at me, here I am. And then it was like, and I was like, okay, something just happened that going through a scientific process as best as I could possibly do under these circumstances defies what I'm trying to do to figure out what it is, But there's been a variety of things that have happened in my life where I always try to, I have a very hard time, like that UFO thing was one of those ones where it's like, yeah, I definitely think I saw something that was not a plane could not have done what that just did. Mm-hmm. But, every time something strange happens in one way or another, I'm always like, well, it could have been this, it could have been that, it could have been this or whatever, and as far as psychic phenomena goes, there's so many things out there. It's hard. Like recently I was at a thing and I met somebody that said they were a psychic, and I was as very politely as I could. I was like, okay, well, thanks, gotta go, bye. And I just did not want to talk to that person.
Yeah, and again, I hope that you know that I'm saying all this in a very positive interaction sort of way. But like, to me, that's the equivalent of saying, well, people say that there are aliens underground at Dulce Base, and because of that, there isn't a UFO phenomena. Like,
yeah, I agree with.
For me, the gold standard is like. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm not fighting you in what you're saying. I agree that my way of thinking is possibly flawed, but I'm a human being and it's human nature. There's only so much that I could do.
Well, and that's also what you run into on a daily basis. People who say I'm a sensitive.
Yeah,
your chakra is doing this. Not to deny the concept of chakras either, but for me, like I look at the work of like Dean Radin and Rupert Sheldrake, and like to me, I reach a threshold where I'm like, there's something going on here. I don't know if it's what we can necessarily consider psychic phenomena in the traditional sense, but there's something going on here.
See, that's one of the things. It's funny you should say that. That's one of the things I kind of default to, because very often, and I don't like to talk about this very often either. So you're yanking something out of me here. Very often, I quite frequently.
We should be on the air, so I can't say that. Go ahead.
Very often, or inoften, however you want to put it, there are times when I will more or less begin to feel in an empathetic way things that people are feeling around me. I don't believe in the concept of mind reading, because I don't believe thought happens in a process where you can actually read a person's mind. But very often there has been times where I've been able to, more or less feel what other people are feeling around me. And I don't know if that's entirely because I'm very good at picking up on body language and picking up on people's moods and things like that. But there's been times where it's been almost overwhelming, where it's like, it's a very strange disconnect. It's like, am I actually feeling depressed right now? Or am I feeling this person's depression and I'm fine? It's kind of like hearing a voice inside your head that you're not sure if it's your voice or not.
Yeah,
it's like
the empathic thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it's like, and it's really strange how fast the human brain works, because in a microcosm, I'll have this whole argument in my head of like, no, you're depressed, but I have nothing really to be depressed about, but I'm just really depressed, but everybody else around me is depressed. But did that mean because misery loves company and because I'm sympathizing that this person is depressed? But then again, they're not giving any real outward signs that they're depressed. Maybe they are. I'm picking up on it. This is the argument that's going on in my brain at like lightning speed as I'm around people. And when I'm in crowds are really, really bad for me. There are times when I have to get out of a crowd. If I'm in a crowd, it's very it's more than claustrophobia. It's kind of like hearing a whole bunch of static noise, but it's people. It's very difficult to explain. And I'll lose it, and I'll be like, I've got to get out of here. And my wife's like, you need to calm down. I'm like, no, I need to get away from all of these people, because it's this kind of a sensory overload. Now, I go back to the skeptic part of me, just says, maybe you're a claustrophobic person and you don't like to be able to hold around with people. That is a legitimate fear, and you may be having some kind of a visceral reaction from it. But at the same time, it's like, no, I'm feeling all of these people at the same time. But I can't go up and tell somebody that, because it sounds almost ludicrous. So what I kind of think, part of me wants to go, you know what, this isn't so much a woo-woo psychic phenomena. This may just be one of those things that people can do that isn't developed enough for us to completely understand it, or something. It's like a person everybody sees colors, but you ever so often you have people out there that can see into the ultraviolet spectrum,
But see, my counter would be, why do those have to be mutually exclusive, right?
I don't know, because again, I'm picking at straws and pulling at things here that I don't quite understand, and I'm not sure I go back to, I'm not sure if I believe in. Right. But if it is, part of me, there's a strong part of me that wants to say, no, this isn't the psychic woo-woo phenomena. This is something that everybody can do. It's like when a mother knows her daughter is pregnant, or when a cop knows somebody is lying. And the counter to that is that I've gotten from the skeptical community is, well, yeah, a cop is trained to be able to tell when a person is lying. A mother knows her child. But it's like, yeah, but what happens when a mom is 500 miles away and she knows that something happens to her daughter or to her husband? There's a bond between mother and child or between a parent and a child that it goes beyond, just what it is. And I have these kind of, like, I have it with my wife all the time. My wife gets so pissed off when it happens between me and her, because I'll just walk up and give her a napkin or whatever, and she'll be in the next room, or she won't be outside doing something. I'll walk up and give her something or do something that she was thinking about doing. Likewise, I have also had situations, and I believe this happens all the time to people too, where you'll have a thought going through your head, kind of like on loop or something like that, and somebody will they'll respond to you as though you said it out loud and you didn't say it out loud.
Yeah.
Now, by the way you guys are laughing, I can tell that you guys have had it happen to you.
I have this thing, and I'm convinced that like 60% of the time I've actually done it.
60% of the time, it works every time.
Yeah, right. I'll have this thing that happens where like 60% of the time I'll be thinking of a melody. Sorry, I'll be thinking of a melody, and 60% of the time, I'm pretty sure I've whistled it or hummed it at some point.
Mm-hmm.
But that other 40% of the time, I'm almost dead certain that I've been thinking of a melody, and someone else will whistle or hum it.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever had that happen?
Oh yeah, there's
like
things
I'm sure that subconsciously or just not thinking about it, I've done it some of the time, but some of the time I think that I'm listening to thinking of that melody and somebody else will do it. I'm like, did I really do that? They're like, no, you didn't.
That kind of falls in with my theory about this, that if this is a thing, and I'm not saying it is a thing, this is just a crazy thought that I have. I think that this stuff happens on, if it is real, it's happening on a subconscious level to a point that we really can't control it. It's just something that happens and comes and goes, which is frustrating because if we could harness that, the things we could do. But, I think as well as receiving that, it also projects in many ways too. And I could give you so many incidents of, I'll be like, God, I really want a Pepsi right now or something like that. And then, somebody will just hand you a Pepsi. And I'm like, why'd you do that? Well, you just asked me for one. I'm like, no, my mouth is full of food. How could I ask you for a Pepsi? But you don't say that because you don't want to sound like a crackpot. So you go, oh, yeah, and you're thinking, how the hell did I do that? And it happens all the time. And the skeptical people and the skeptical things just want to explain it away as blasé or whatever. But I think it happens all the time. And it's just one of those things that is. And I'm not sure if it's something that's, on a psychic level, and maybe some people are more strongly in tune with that and can focus it or whatever, and maybe it doesn't happen on a subconscious level. But I don't really believe that it's something that people can just trigger and do until I see something to where, I have to see it with my own eyes, and I have to make sure you're not pulling any strings here. There's there's nothing going on under the table or nothing like that. For my own eyes to believe that. But I have theories based on my own personal experiences that I have no way of scientifically validating. So I hope that answers your question.
But really, honestly, you strike me as someone who is so careful to avoid, popular conceptions of someone who believes in psi phenomena to a fault, versus like a lot of people who are like, I've never had this happen to me, so it must not exist. Like you said, like there's evidence that seems to suggest that it exists, and I've seen it, but like I don't want to be that person. Again, I'm putting words in your mouth, and I don't want to sound like I'm being antagonistic.
No, that's kind of what it is, and I'm not even, as I said, I'm a human being who has different thought, but that's kind of why I do what I do. Is because I'm kind of at some extent looking for answers to these questions. I don't think I'm ever going to find them.
No, I think it's healthy. Honestly.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun going down that road and looking for these kinds of things. So I don't, and to be honest with you, I really don't even care if I ever find answers to any of this stuff. I think I'm just, it's not about the destination for me. I think it's very much more about the journey.
Sure.
But by the same token, I really do have this weird thing about when people walk up and say, hi, I'm a psychic and blah, blah, blah. I have this repulsion to where it's like, you know what, I don't want to hear what you've got to say. Well, I should, but I don't.
and I have that same sort of thing. And it's not that I don't believe them. I've met people who claim to be psychics who have demonstrated a level of intuitiveness that is unusual. But it's just, I think it's the cultural understanding of what that means at this point. It's like...
Yeah, I can agree with that, yes.
When you come out and say you're a psychic, it's kind of like, ugh. If you just said, hey, sometimes I pick stuff up, then people go, oh, really? Because you're not titling yourself in a sense.
Plus, psychic is such a broad term. When you say psychic, all right, well, wait a minute. What flavor are we talking about here? Can you find dead bodies? Do you talk to spirits? Do you read minds? What's your shtick? I don't want to put it that way, but it's such a broad term. Like, yes. I would never, even though this stuff happens to me all the time, I would never walk up to somebody and say, I'm a psychic. If I could control it, if I could do it at whim, and if I could get quantifiable, repeatable results, I would walk up and say, yeah, I'm a psychic, and here's how I'm going to prove it to you. Though I don't think that would be enough to prove it to a hardcore skeptic.
No.
But by the same token, it's like, I just, I would never walk up and say I'm a psychic because I don't feel that I don't have the ability. I just think it's a natural kind of thing.
I do. Yeah. That's what I was going to say. I think that it is something that everyone has an ability to do, but some people maybe have a little more fine-tuned ability, and maybe you can focus on it and make it even stronger if you know how to focus on it. But also, I think you were saying earlier about like picking up other things, and I think it is a combination. It's just another sense. And there's a lot of stuff we pick up unconsciously about people that we don't realize. And I mean, if you're a mentalist or a cold reader or something, you know what to look for.
Exactly.
You know,
exactly.
you know how to pick that stuff out, but there's still stuff. There's certain things you couldn't possibly pick up that way. You know, that are just too like I refuse to ever acknowledge that I'm psychic, despite having very weird experiences sometimes with this stuff. And one of them, I had a co-host back years and years ago on The Last Exit, and I don't think he actually believed in any of this stuff at the time. And the first thing that happened with him is I had a friend who I could pick up her thoughts very easily. Never happened with anyone but this one girl. And we were sitting there doing the show, and she started to say something and stopped. And then I answered her because the question she had just popped into my head. And it had nothing, there was no evidence like where I could have picked that up from. It didn't relate to
Let me
anything.
ask you a question about that.
Yeah.
I have a theory about how thought works. This is why I don't necessarily believe that people can read minds on a consistent level. When you would say that you know what she thought, how did you experience that?
Like a voice, like her voice in my head.
Okay, it was her voice inside of your head?
Yes.
See, when I have these kinds of experiences, it is my voice or what I am inside of my head for the most part. I have this idea of how thought works, and I'm not entirely, it's kind of a hard way to explain it, but I think when we think something, our brains work on multi-levels. We have a main thought that goes through our head, which is instantaneous. I'm talking to you, blah, 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 blah. You know, things happen, boom, 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 they come out as we say them. But at the same time, you also have different levels of background noise going on in the background. You may have a bill that's due next week, and you're really worried about it. So it's kind of like that's one loop going through your head. I got to pay that bill. I got to pay that bill. I got to pay that bill. And then another part of your brain, you're like, I got to go out to dinner tomorrow with my wife at 5:00, and I can't forget about that. I got to pay that. And so you've got that going on. You've got that going on. And then you've got something else going on. Think of it as an upside down pyramid. And then at the bottom, you know, exactly. But these are kind of thoughts are kind of like loops that are going on, like data loops that are going on in the background of your head. This is why I think like when we quote unquote project this stuff, when you project your thoughts, like, God, I really want a Pepsi. And it's when you're, I really want a Pepsi. I really want a Pepsi. I really want a Pepsi. And somebody goes, here, you want a Pepsi? You know, you just asked for it. Well, you didn't ask for it, but it's like, okay, somehow or another, I sent out the loop of I want a Pepsi, you know, and that person picked up that thought and got it back, because those are thought kind of happens over and over and over again. And as I always like to say, I hope I'm making sense right now.
No, you are, totally.
I think that's kind of how thought works. So if somebody can read minds, they're getting that, they're picking up on certain loops depending on where it registers in your brain's quantum computing process or whatever, you know, thoughts happen like Windows on a desktop for the most part.
Yeah, and
to be that person, or are you just picking up on things that will happen?
I don't know. I believe that it's more of, if this is real and if people are picking up on things like that, well, then again, it might be different for every person. For you, you might hear the voice in your head. Like for me, when I'm in crowds, I don't hear other people's voices in my heads. I hear my thoughts in my head, except for I've experienced all of these, and it becomes very, it's like, wait a minute, am I thinking this? What am I thinking? What I have to concentrate on what my thoughts actually are. And then it becomes very much overpowering and almost becomes like a nauseating sensation. And I've had it explained to me as like, well, yeah, you have a fear of crowds. And what that is that's your body, that's your fear raising your heart rate and kicking your body in and giving you a fight or flight response, making you want to get out of there. And I'm like, well, to some extent, yes, but how does that explain how I feel all of this? And how does that explain why my skin stands up, you know, my hairs stand up and stuff? And why does that explain where I can look over a person and be like, that person's car payment's due and they can't pay it. That person, blah, blah, blah. No, wait, it's not, it's that person. Oh, no, but somebody here has this going on and somebody here has that going on. And I know it's not me because my car payment isn't due. And, you know, and then that's where your brain starts going. You're like, I don't know what car payment, but it's happening again at the speed of thought. It's happening instantaneous to the point where I just go, I have to get out of here right now. I have to get out of here. I can't be here. There's too much going on. And my wife's seen it happen to me numerous times. And, you know, people are like, what's wrong with him? And she'll just be like, oh, he's weird. You know? You know?
Well, when
it's embarrassing, you know.
when that would happen with me, you know, my friend sat there and I answered whatever her question was, and she's like, no matter how many times you do that, I'm not going to get used to it. And then he goes jokingly, well, he's psychic, and she's like, I know, he does it to me all the time. And then he started thinking about it and realized, how did I know what she was going to say? Like, because it didn't relate to anything that was going on.
You might have just been on her quote unquote vibration level.
Right.
You might have been on her particular. You might have just been picking up her signal.
And I think that is very
signal.
that is very possible as to an explanation for it. But the other thing that happened there with him is that he was a Cornell student, and he was a postgrad. And when he had first signed up for whatever project he was working on, he had said that he didn't need to stay in Ithaca. He could go wherever. He didn't care. But then he had become part of the radio show, and he had become good friends with everyone, and then he really didn't want to leave. And they decided, no, we're going to send you to, like, Wisconsin or something. And so he came in, and he said, I got bad news. They're sending me to, like, Wisconsin, and there's nothing I can do about it because I signed the contract. And as soon as he said that, I just kind of looked at him, and I said, no, you're not going. And he kind of got upset a bit with me, and he kept going, no, I'm going. There's nothing I can do about it, because he's like, I don't want to go, but I signed this contract. They could literally take me to court. And so this kept going for whatever, a month or so that, before he was actually going to leave, right up to the very last week before he was going to leave. And I kept telling him, you're not going. I just knew he wasn't leaving. And he walks in the week before what was supposed to be his last show. He walks in and he just yells at me, how the F did you know? And I had no idea what he was talking about for a moment. I'm like, no, what? He's like, I'm not going. I'm like, oh, yeah, I told you that.
Yeah, I've had many things like that happen all the time. Again, I used to have it happen with my wife all the time. Now she's just to a point where she goes, all right, whatever. Like this motorcycle thing was a great example of it. It's just like, I'm not sure if I explained my big thing is synchronicities. I have synchronicities that happen all the time.
Oh, so do I, yeah.
All the time. And I've learned in life now, I used to be really bummed out and try to fight them and stuff because it felt like I didn't have any control over my life. It felt very much like I am on a roller coaster ride and I have no over control where this is going to go. Now I don't fight it anymore, but I wonder if this whole motorcycle thing that just happened was one of those synchronicities where it was like, all right, this is happening this way because it's supposed to. Don't fight it. Just get the motorcycle. Let what's going to happen, because if I didn't fight it, something would have come up. Like that guy might have not have bought the motorcycle or something. Things happen in weird ways in my life. Some people it's UFOs, some people it's ghosts. My big thing that affects me is synchronicities, and they just happen all the time, and they still bug me. But I've become more accepting of them. For the most part, I don't fight them anymore.
To me, synchronicities are sort of an agreement from the universe. Like, if I get synchronicities, I know I'm going the way I'm supposed to go. So I don't necessarily think they're a control factor. They're sort of like the universe communicating.
See, I have a hard time grasping that, because why the hell would the universe care about me?
Well, what if the universe, the part of the universe that's communicating is your higher self? What if, like I almost put it this way, what if we're in a big video game and our higher selves, our higher selves are playing the game and we're the avatar in the game, but it can't communicate with us directly. So you got to kind of put things in its path and kind of guide it along the way you want it to go, and it's really you doing the guiding.
But why would anybody want to play me as a character class?
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, it's like
it's for the challenge.
God, I really want to play this guy who's okay. Well, what character type is he? Okay, so he's going to end up being a 44-year-old fat guy that's going bald. Oh, you know what? I've always wanted to play this class. I'll try it out. I'll try it out. Let me go on.
Yeah, but come on. That's assuming things like compassion and talent aren't in your D&D skill set. And to me,
oh, this sucks. I'm playing 4.0. Geek joke. I've thought about that.
I think there are hybrid models that can accommodate for that sort of thinking.
I frequently find myself making the joke of, well, I'll do that in my next life. This life I did this. Well, maybe I should have been a porn star. Well, maybe I already did that and I didn't like it. I'll try it out next life. Or maybe next life I won't have any kids. Or maybe next life I'll go to Tahiti or something like that. I find myself saying that kind of stuff all the time. So, I don't know, and I'm not really sure why I would say that because I don't necessarily believe in reincarnation either. But so I don't know. It's just an odd thing, I guess.
Now, you mentioned something about dealing with possession. What was that about?
Oh, this is a weird story. What the heck? I've told it a couple of times. I've never talked about. Maybe I think I have talked about it on my show. This can be a long story. It could take about 20, 25, maybe 30 minutes. Do you have the time?
Go for
it. Listeners that have listened to my show and know who I am many times have already heard this story probably. If not, I don't know what episode I talked about it on. And I don't know if this is true. This is where my skeptical brain kicks in because there's a lot of things when I look back on it, it could have been this, or this. But here's how the story goes. A long time ago, I believe, I'm not even entirely certain how old that I was at the time. Not very far from where I live now. I live real close to Metro Airport in Michigan. If you've ever flown into the Detroit area and landed at Metro Airport, I live in like a bullseye, right? I live in that little bullseye around there. And when I was much, much younger, myself, my mom, and maybe her boyfriend was living in this farmhouse really, really close to the airport at the time. The airport really has no significance on the story. It's just a placeholder for the story. And we lived in this farmhouse. Now the house is no longer there. It has since been turned into a parking lot for a failed rent-a-car place. I believe somebody's using it for something else now. But the house that we lived at, we were renting this old farmhouse, and we had chickens, and there was an old barn behind the house, and the house was fairly old, and there was some peculiarities about the house. And peculiarities, I mean, like there was one wall that had like carpet tiles going up over, around, and down around the bathroom door, things like that. My mom was a partier. She was a hippie child. She drank a lot, smoked a lot of weed, did get high on some drugs and stuff. But there was one night in particular, we had a lot of strange things happen at this house. We also had a large dog, like, I don't want to say creature, but it was a very large like dog that I believe I've heard people on your show or somebody else's show describe very similarly, to where it was about the size of a large Great Dane. And I always go back, there was a dog named Gibson for a while. It was this huge Great Dane. It was on the Oprah Winfrey show. If you Google that dog, Gibson, or the largest world record for the largest, Great Dane. But this dog was big, and it had a very, it was black. It had a large German Shepherd-like mane on the front, and the hair thinned down on the back. And this dog, our house, you had to walk up a porch of about 6 steps, go up to the porch, and then you would go into the living room. So the house was raised up a little bit. It had a brick foundation, a basement underneath it. And this dog would actually come up and like put its paws up at night and stare into the windows and stuff. This dog had no fear. It would harass the hell out of us. It would kill our chickens. We had pet rabbits. It would kill the rabbits. And like you would come home from grocery shopping at night. And I remember one night very vividly, we came home. And again, I don't remember specifically how old I was, but I remember us coming home and the dog was in the driveway. And this is one of the things that it did was very strange. It had the ability to rear up on its hind legs and walk for a good, not real far, but it could walk for a good amount of distance on its back legs with its paws up in the air. Like it would charge at you like a ram or a deer does right before it charges and puts its horns down to charge into something. This dog would do that, and it would stand up on its hind legs and charge at you, then go back down on its front paws and stuff, and it would harass us. So there was a few times where we'd get home and we wouldn't get out of the car until this thing went away, because it would do stuff like that. It would be out in the field, and like my mom wouldn't let me play out in the backyard without being watched because she was afraid that this dog was going to get us. Likewise, my mom also grew pot plants out in the woods out there, so when we would go out there, to check on our pot plants, we went out as a group. We would never go out by ourselves, and she would never go out by herself because we were always afraid of this dog. Now that I've explained the dog, there was one particular night that my mom had said, okay, go to bed. Everybody was over the house. They were all drinking beer. It was my mom, her buddies, her boyfriend. They were all partying and stuff. She's like, all right, time for you to go to bed. So off to bed I went. Now, I don't remember very much of this period of time from this point on at all. But apparently she had said, go to bed. To get to the bathroom, you had to go to the hallway, make a right turn, pass my bedroom door, and the bathroom was at the end of the hall. Well, she heard me in the bedroom, and she'd said, go to bed. So she was going to fling the door open and yell at me and say, get your ass to bed. When she opened up the door, I was standing in bed and I had wet myself. and I was talking at the window, and in the window, staring through the window, was dun 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 the dog. And she said, and I remember this too, the dog did have glowing red eyes, but I don't know if they were glowing red eyes because they actually glowed or if it just, that was light reflecting off of the eyes. I think it was light reflecting off the eyes, but I have yet to see an animal that's eyes look red with reflecting light because I don't ever recall the eyes actually glowing. So she panicked and threw the beer bottle threw a bottle of beer she had at the window and hit the windowsill. The dog ran away and she slammed the window down or whatever. And of course she was like, "You wet the bed, blah, 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 blah," because she was flipped out. So, I went to bed. After that, for about 2 weeks, from what my family tells me, because very many members of my family have told me this story, I acted, for lack of a better term, like the boy did in The Shining when he was talking really weird, blah, blah. I acted very much uncharacter. And my mom got really mad about that. And she said that I would say things in either French or Latin. I can explain that as well, too, skeptically, but I'll get to that. I would take needles and pick my fingers, and I would write on the walls. And one of the things that I very, very vividly remember my family telling me is that I wrote on the wall, "Our souls are food." At the time, I was, I think, 6, maybe Jesus. 5, 6, maybe 7. And I would do stuff like that. It got to a point where they had to start hiding safety pins and needles and things that I couldn't get to them because I had this obsession with picking and drawing blood from myself and finger painting with the blood. And also, none of the animals that we had would go near me. They didn't like me. We had a cat that was my buddy. The cat loved me. The cat started getting really, really weird. And it wasn't just particularly towards me. Again, the bathroom had carpet tiles going around the bathroom door. The cat, my uncle had told me, went up and it climbed up the wall and hung out over top of the bathroom door. When he walked out, the cat jumped down and scratched his back up, put his claws out. And I don't know if the cat fell off the wall and was just falling, and my uncle happened to walk underneath it. Well, when a cat falls, it's going to stick its claws out to get traction from when it's falling. So he said the cat went down and ripped up his back pretty good. The dog wouldn't go near me. Lights would flicker on and off in the house. I wouldn't eat at all. I didn't want to eat very much. And my mom was getting more and more irritated. She was like, "Act normal. What's the matter with you? Blah, blah, blah." And then, this could be, again, the next part of the story could just be people remembering things out of order. My uncle was also into motorcycles, and he had a Harley that he was working on out back. And I remember it was a Joe's Hog. And the dog, again, came out across the field and was coming up to the yard and was heading over to the chicken coop. So he went in the house and grabbed a .22. And he says he shot it in the rear, and then it took off. No, we never found a body of it or anything like that. And then after that, I started to act fairly normal again. I went back to being a fairly, normal 5 or 6 year old kid or however old I was. So now I've asked most of the people that were in my family that told me the story, most of them are passed away now. Before my mom passed away, me and my mom had a situation where, because of her lifestyle, I just said, "I can't talk to you anymore. I've got my own family now, and I can't be around this lifestyle." We eventually made amends, and I went out to dinner with her. She ended up passing away about 2 years after that, after we kind of made our patch up amends, and we went out to eat. And I was like, "I need you to tell me about this story with me and this dog that happened at the farmhouse." And she was really, really leery and weird about it. Most of the people in my family didn't want to talk about what happened to me. They would talk about it, but not very much. My aunt, my grandmother, a couple of my cousins, my mom, and my uncle were all involved with the family, coming in and out of the house and stuff. So they all saw me. I think my grandmother or my aunt actually called Child Protective Services at that time and was going to have us investigated because I was acting so strange. So I've tried over the years to get many people in my family to talk about it, but none of them ever really want to. I always get the same kind of vague responses of, "I don't remember a whole lot. I don't want to talk about it. Why are you interested in this?" Because every once in a while, I'll still dream about that dog. I haven't had a dream lately. But so when I look back at all this stuff, the skeptical stuff starts to kick in. My mom was a partier. So the thing about the dog being in the window, the dog probably very well could have been in the window, and she probably threw the beer bottle at it. And I probably did wet the bed. I might have been afraid, or I might have just wet the bed. So for that explains, okay, that possibility could have happened. Me acting weird, taking needles and poking myself in the finger, writing on the walls and stuff. Again, I could have just been a child reacting to my mother getting high all the time. I had I didn't have a standard regular home life. My mom had a lot of boyfriends coming and going. She was getting drunk all the time and getting high. This, I could have simply been acting out against that as any child would do in that kind of a situation. The cat acting weird. The cat could have just been falling off the wall or whatever, and my uncle happened to walk underneath it. The lights flickering on and off. Old house, bad electrical wires, not uncommon. Me talking in Latin and French. I did watch at the time. Sesame Street was broadcast in America from Canada, which is right on the other side of the Detroit River. We could get a lot of their channels over here, and they would have Sesame Street in French. So I would watch Sesame Street and I would learn words in English and French. Latin, I don't know about. Now, I don't know if I was speaking Latin. That's an awful strange language to add to a story. My mom, being the person that she was, I don't think would suddenly say, you were speaking Latin, because I'm not sure if she would have known what Latin actually was or whatever. So that I don't know about, but I could explain me speaking in French because I was learning French through Sesame Street. I don't know a word of it now. My mom used to get mad and smack me and say, speak English, I can't understand you. And the dog, it could have just been a regular weird dog that was in the area, but I've searched through local town records. I've done it many, many times looking for newspaper clippings for any other reports of this dog. And I've never come across any other reports of this animal. I've never seen any newspaper articles. There weren't a lot of houses around there besides ours, so I couldn't exactly go ask neighbor, hey, 40 years ago, so yeah, that's the story. And, I've had people, question me, well, maybe you are the way you are and you do the things you do because of that situation or what have you. But another thing is it doesn't fit. There's so many weird stories there. You've got a cryptozoological creature. You've got a possession-like story going on, because my mom insists that I was possessed by something. The whole family insisted on it. They got very creeped out, and they just didn't want to talk about it. Or when they did, they would make the joke, you better be good or we'll sick the dog on you. And for a long time, I didn't know what the hell that meant. I'm like, what you're going to sick the dog? What dog? We don't have a dog. We've got a cat, or we got a rabbit.
But I'd argue that the black dog thing isn't a cryptozoological.
No, it is a phenomenon. Correct. So that's one of my stories. But I don't entirely know, how much of it actually happened or whatever. But the part of it that makes me want to believe it is there's a lot of people, my mother, my grandmother, she was Lutheran. She was very religious, and she didn't mess around with that kind of stuff. She was just like, everybody, I've had different people tell me, yeah, you were messed up. You were really, really weird for that 2-week period of time. For however long that was going on, you were really strange, and then you just got real normal again and started acting normal and stopped writing on the walls and stuff. But I've never heard of a child that young getting finger painting in blood and writing things like our souls are food. I just don't see a 5 or 6 year old kid. What would I have had to have been exposed to, even if I were just doing it? Was my mom watching like devil possession movies around me or something for me to learn something like that? I don't think that happened. That I know of. I have no sexual abuse or anything in my past or whatever. I don't think I have any repressed memories or anything like that to trigger something like that. So it's a strange story. It's again, I can skeptically explain almost all of it away though. It's not real hard for me to make leaps and say, well, this could have been this or this could have been that, because even the skeptical aspects of it make sense. So
the thing is, like, how many skeptical blocks have to come into perfect alignment to produce that sort of narrative,
That's the thing, though. The skeptical leaps of faith that I'm making aren't really that great. My mom did have a lot of boyfriends, and she did party a lot, and
but they all have to happen, right?
Yeah,
that's the real thing. Like
the skeptical things that I'm throwing up there would not be that far-fetched to happen, though. It wouldn't have been. The house was old. It did have wiring problems. So yeah, lights flickered on and off in the room. Well, again, that it could be possible. It might not be. But again, another thing is I don't remember.
Fair enough.
So, I'm not saying, it's not like I'm saying, well, yeah, okay, well, maybe there was a dwarf under the floorboards who was doing this or that with strings or something. When I hear stuff like that, it's like, really, dude, you're reaching that far? Because I'm not really reaching that far with any of my skeptical my skeptical things, and my mom got, she did get high a lot. So, and she would get really baked on a lot of different stuff.
And, here's the other side of that. First of all, when I use the term skeptical, I mean people who ask questions, not necessarily debunk things.
Yeah.
Skepticism to me is about keeping yourself open-minded.
Mm-hmm.
But with that experience, like you're saying, with your mom being, the way she was and stuff, maybe you were manifesting some of the stuff around you to get attention without, not doing it consciously, but just like a poltergeist encounter.
Yeah, I have a term called the over-tulpification of things.
Nice.
I tend to want to avoid the over-tulpification of things because I don't think I would manifest I don't know. I mean, again, how much power would a child of that age be able to have to do something like this? That has come into my head before. I have thought about that. But this experience with the dog, it would happen when I wasn't there too. My uncle, other members of my family, even if I wasn't there, this dog thing would come around and harass us. So now, as far as writing on the walls and stuff like that, yeah, I could have been doing that to get attention. That could have been a reaction. Me acting weird could have just been like, listen, I want attention because you're getting high all the time. And I this is an anti-structural kind of thing. I want normalcy as a child. I want attention from my mom. So that plays into the skeptical part of it too. Now, as far as manifesting some kind of demon thing or manifesting lights blinking on and off and stuff like that, I don't know. I'm not saying it's not possible, but I don't know if I want to go there.
Okay.
And this is, I know it sounds strange coming from me to a person that has had this experience, but also on another level, this could be something that I just subconsciously don't want to deal with, and I've created all this skepticism around it so that I don't have to. The problem is I don't remember much of it to want to do that. But the argument there is, well, maybe you don't want to remember it.
Yeah.
So, can you tell I've had this discussion with many people about this stuff? And again, the way I look at it now that I'm older, none of these things that I'm throwing out there right now bother me. Any one of these answers I could be comfortable with. My tendency is to want to believe that it didn't happen the way the skeptical nature of me wants to explain a lot of it away. But I'm not going to lose any sleep over it if I'm wrong. I mean, it hasn't plagued me later in life. I don't have demon possession problems now. I don't, I don't pick my finger and write on the walls or anything like that. So unless I don't have any ink in the pen and I need to write down a phone number or whatever,
or you're signing certain contracts with supernatural entities.
Yeah. The one with Dark Lord Cthulhu, that was weird. It was missing a page or two. So yeah, again, all of the stuff that I've just explained to you, it's not a conundrum that goes through my head where I sit and obsess about it and wonder about it and worry about it or anything like that. It's just something that happened. And ultimately, as with all of these things that I look at, like even the UFO thing, when I saw the UFO, that did wig me out for a couple of days. And it wasn't so much that that was a situation that was one of the first times really where I've saw something, I've tried to explain it away rationally and competently as best as possible, and I cannot do it. And that was when the realization of this is actually happening to you right now, that weirded me out for a few days, but I got over it. And the reason why is I've got to get up and go to work the next day and pay bills. I've got to continue living life. And if I go into work and say, hey, or this happened or that happened, well, that's great. You gotta be here at 8 o'clock in the morning, dude. You don't have a job, and then you can't pay your house payment, and then, so that's
that is what happens to some people.
Yeah. So it's again, I try to be as agnostic about all of this stuff as I possibly can. I think part of it is that I have this fear that once you say I am, like, okay, for example, if I were to say I am a Democrat or I am a Republican, the second, or I am a skeptic or I am a believer, the second you affirm that you're going to be that, then the blinders go on and you start to go down that path of I only see this, I only see that.
Sure.
And the battle that I have as far as this field is, it's like, am I a skeptic or am I a believer? And it's like I feel a strong pull for skepticism, but it's like I just don't think that's necessarily right, and I don't want to put the skeptic blinders on But at the same time, I also, it makes me kind of cynical. There's so much stuff that gets posted on social media and stuff like that where you're like, this is fake, blah, 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 And I don't want to be that way. I want to still, I want to believe in UFOs and Bigfoot and things like that. And, I believe if I had to look at a percentage graph, out of 100%, I think 96% of the stuff out there is crap. But it's that 4%. It's that 4% where it's like, that's where I want to look at.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So that's
well,
where
there's science and mythology and science.
Yes.
And I think the true discerning Fortean's job is to realize where those two intersect and don't.
And I think they do intersect in a lot of, like, religion and science, I think intersect in a lot of ways all of the time. But because everybody is so firmly grounded in one foot or the other, they don't want to see where the two intersect, or, where you have like the quantum phenomena and like the stuff we've been talking about with psychic phenomena and stuff like that. That's where I say, you know what? I don't necessarily think this is a woo-woo kind of thing. I just think it's something that we can do that we don't fully understand, and because some people can't do it, or a lot of people can't do it. We just tend to want to write it off as Absolutely. Like me saying, I don't believe in psychics, but at the same time, I'm contradicting myself, which I do a lot, by saying, well, if this is real, then, it's not a big deal. It's not, it's just something that some people can do,
Mm-hmm.
Like when it does happen to me, I used to flip out about it all the time, but it's like, well, it's going to happen. I can't control it as much as I would like to. I can't control this kind of stuff when it happens. And sometimes it's downright annoying. I have an ex-girlfriend that I dated years and years ago, and me and this girl have always been in tune. Always. We could go years without talking to one another, and we are always in tune. And it's like I don't have any feelings for this girl or anything right now at all. It's I'm quite happily married. I've got 2 kids and stuff. I'm great with my life. But what bugs me is it's like I'm still in tune with this damn girl.
Sure.
Yeah.
And they'll be, she'll just like, are you all right? And I'm like, no. Why did you send me that message on Facebook? Well, I know something's up with you right now. How do you know that? I haven't talked to you in 3 goddamn weeks. I don't want to talk to you now.
and again, the problem is that you can't measure a quarterback's performance in a laboratory. So you have to always work in the field, but science doesn't want to work in the field with these sort of subjects.
Exactly.
And so you have this what seems to be, from everything we've seen in the laboratory, statistically significant phenomena that works best outside the laboratory setting.
Yes.
Works best in emotive, empathic scenarios, but that's not what we ever touch, ever.
Well, the closest we've gotten to it would be like remote viewing or something. And then you've also got, the Institute of Noetic Studies, which is doing a lot of stuff. But the skeptical community is, well, that's bad science. Or the skeptical community, like, well, okay, these remote viewing cases.
It's not part of the, it's not.
Yeah, it's
not part of
that.
Yeah.
The funding is. Well, let's back up a little bit and really take a look, because I do rather believe that there might be something to remote viewing, even though, again, I did say I don't believe in psychic phenomena, but I believe that there could be something to remote viewing. What it is, I don't know. And that is another area where, again, you've got 100%, 96% of it's crap. It's like how much of it,
well, I feel like remote viewing might be a bit like dowsing. Like, I feel like 51% of the time they're right.
Yeah.
It's just enough to push me over the edge in terms of believing what they're doing.
Well, remote viewing has had a lot of very positive results. I mean, our government spent a lot of time a lot of time investigating it.
Sure.
And if it works, what better way to hide that it works than to say, yeah, it doesn't work. We investigated it. We spent all this money on it. It doesn't work. Well, if it does work, they're like, oh, yeah, it works. And it's something that everybody can learn. You don't want that kind of information out there. Again, this is the government conspiracy kicking in here, but it's not necessarily conspiracy. No, it's smart.
Exactly.
If you were a country and you were experimenting with that kind of stuff, yeah, it's sure. I don't want to keep it quiet too. But apparently the Russians also were experimenting with it as well.
Mm-hmm.
They caught when we were doing it. So, but I believe there may be something to remote viewing.
Well, some of the psychics thing too, I've always described it like knowing my friend wasn't leaving. I describe it as being like a passenger in a car, and you're driving down this road neither of you have ever been on before. And you look over to the side, and kind of shrouded in the woods a little bit, you see an old sign that says rest area 2 miles. And you turn to them and you say, hey, there's a rest area in 2 miles. And they go, no, there's not. How would you even know that? We've never been here, et cetera, et cetera. And they just blow you off. And then 2 miles down the road, there's a rest area. And they're going, how did you know? It's like, there was a sign. You just didn't see it, you know?
What you just said reminded me of something that you were talking about on one of your shows. And I can't remember specifically which one it was. But I think it had something to do with dreams. I'm going to go completely right tangent right now, but I want to get this out there why it's fresh in my head. So just bear with me.
Hey, go ahead.
There is a reoccurring dream that I have from time to time. Again, I'm not necessarily certain if it's psychic or whatever. It is just a very odd dream. It usually happens when there's periods of stress in my life or situations of great decision, or I feel like there is an impending change coming on. Again, this could just be my subconscious. I know if Steve Ray were listening right now, he'd be all over me from half the stuff I'm saying tonight. But I have this dream every once in a while, and I've documented it. I used to be really, really into studying dreams and dream control, experimenting with my dreams, things like that. Because for me, it was like, wow, this is virtual reality if I could get this down. And for a while I was eating different foods and experimenting. That's a different story completely. Now I don't do it as much because I have sleep apnea and I don't sleep solidly through the night. But back to this dream. The dream is usually around the same form. And it's usually I am walking down a road. It is daytime, but it's very cloudy and it's very, very foggy. So I can see woods off to the right and to the left of me. Sometimes the sides of the road are covered in snow and the road itself is covered in snow. Sometimes not, but it is always daytime. It is always foggy. And I always come up on a Native American, older shamanic looking Native American driving a red pickup truck. And in some way or another, it does the stereotypical, I am wise Indian and I will give you wise advice and you must follow this advice, whatever that advice may be. There has been at least one dream in specific where I remember, and this flipped me out so bad that I went on Facebook and posted about it. And Jeremy Vaney jumped on it immediately where I was like, I don't want to talk to Sitting Bull right now. I just want to wake up, So I got off of the road and went through the woods. I've done this many times. Oftentimes I'll go into the woods, I'll come back out on the other side, and I'll be back on the road again. But there was one time specifically where I went off the road and I woke up in somebody else's body. Again, I never felt like I actually woke up in the body. It was when I look back on it, it still felt very dream. And I woke up in somebody else's body and I look over and the person's sitting next to me and the guy's like, "What the hell are you doing? You're in the wrong spot. You got to get out of here. This is not, what do you think you're doing right now?" And the guy grabbed me and pulled me out of the body and threw me out of the body.
Wow.
And I'm like, what the hell was that? Did I astral travel into somebody else's body and they got mad because I stepped into their body? That's what it felt like. It was like, dude, what are you doing in my house? Get out of my house. It was that kind of feeling. And I'm like, whoa, I'm sorry, man. Wrong address. I'm sorry. That was kind of, the guy was like, "What are you doing? Get out of here. You're not supposed to be, you're in the wrong spot." That was what it felt like. You're in my chair. Get out of my chair. That was what it felt like. And boom, back out on the road again. And that really jarred me. It was like, what the hell was that? What did I do? It was like wearing a pair of, I don't even remember what it felt like. It was like getting a new pair of shoes that you haven't broken in and a new pair of pants or whatever. The whole experience felt very uncomfortable. Like, it'll feel fine after a while. You just got to break in the outfit, and it was even getting just waking up in that person's body. Like, whoa, wait, what am I? No, this isn't right. And then you get thrown out of it. And then when you wake up, you're wearing your comfortable pair of old, Levi's jeans and old shoes that you don't want to get rid of. But I have this dream where I encounter a shaman of some kind or a Native American, and it's an old red Ford F-100 pickup truck, and he'll pull up and he'll get out of the truck and say something. There's been times where I've sat on the back of the tailgate of the truck and sat and listened to the guy. And that's it. That's pretty much the dream. And then I'll walk on down the road and wake up again. And I've had people tell me, well, yeah, you were in the spirit realm. You were at the crossroads. I'm like, well, there's no crossroads. It's just woods, And then, I've had people tell me, well, yeah, you had an out of body experience of some kind or another. And I'm like, well, that kind of sucks, because if that's what an out-of-body experience feels like, it was kind of anticlimactic, because it just felt like I was dreaming. I would hope if I had an out-of-body experience that it would be more visceral and more real, because when I woke up, I definitely knew I had a dream. I definitely didn't feel like I went into somebody else's body or I left my body or any way, shape, or form.
I would say you had what the Aborigines call a big dream.
Yeah, I've also had people tell me that I had a spirit walk.
Possible.
I love this big dream, little dream imagery, because I've used it a couple times since you talked to me about Sarai. The idea that some dreams are just like confections, it's like just like a puff pastry, and some dreams are like a steak. Like some dreams are big dreams that you need to pay attention to. Yeah.
I've also had dreams where I was stuck inside of this is a weird one I very vividly remember as well too. This one makes no sense at all, but it's very funny to tell. I had a dream where I woke up and I was literally in a maze, and looking up, I could see lab technicians in lab coats, things like that, clipboards looking down at me. And the maze was an IKEA store. That's why it's funny. That's what it was. It was like, okay, you make it through the maze. At the end of the maze, you'll have the meatballs as your little rat treat.
Awesome, yes.
And I remember getting partway through the maze with the IKEA store. Even to this day, when I walk into an IKEA store, I want to laugh, because I'm like, I'm in the dream, and I look up at the ceiling.
The
but of
IKEA
course,
stores are kind of labyrinthine.
well, I did get out of. It gets weirder. It goes weirder, because when I eventually got out of the IKEA store, made like a down escalator. This gets so weird. As if being in a giant maze with technicians looking down on you with clipboards while you're in an IKEA store isn't bad enough. I took the down escalator, ended up inside of a hamster habit trail with the tubes, made it through the tubes, got out of the tubes, and boom, I am now in the area looking down at the IKEA rat maze with the technicians looking at it with other people in there. And this maze is in the middle of a indoor mall, in the open section of a mall. So there's people walking around shopping and stuff. None of this makes any sense at all. It's just such a strange dream that it sticks in my head. And I tried to tell it to my buddy who was with me, and he was like, what kind of crap are you smoking? Because it was so bizarre. He's like, so you made it out of the maze? I'm like, yeah, I made it out of the maze, and then I made it into a hamster cage. No, I didn't run on the wheel, because that's what I write. Did you run on the wheel? No, I didn't run the wheel. I did not drink water out of the big stick sticking out with a ball in it. Get that vision in your head. But there was the little tubes that I had to go through and stuff. And when I finally made it out to the top, I just stepped out of it, and boom, it was like being in John Malkovich's head. That movie.
There's so much to work with here, Roejen. I know. Tear you apart.
And then I look over and I see the scientists, the nerdy chick with the glasses. Everybody's wearing lab coats, and they're all holding their boards, and they're all writing, case subject made right turn at, bedroom stuff. And it's an IKEA store. You're looking down an IKEA store from above. And there's people walking around through the IKEA store. And now to this day, when I go into an IKEA store, it always that sticks. Boom, I'm there. And it's not scary. I just kind of chuckle, and I'm like, what are you laughing about? I don't even want to tell you. You wouldn't understand. So that dream, I didn't get any kind of prophetic vision or anything out of that dream. I didn't gain any insight. I was not anally probed or nothing. It's just a really odd dream that, for whatever reason, I remember clear as day. It was one of those dreams where I woke up. I don't know. It was an experience. I've only had this happen a few times, where I woke up laughing from sleep. Like I woke myself up giggling. Like I woke up and I'm like, my wife's like, "What's going on?" I'm like, "I don't know. You wouldn't believe me." My wife's like, "What?" When I was experimenting with dreams, my wife actually made me quit, because I was doing such crazy stuff. And this is before I had sleep apnea. I would have dreams where I would be running in place, or I would have dreams where my wife would be falling off of a cliff, and I would have to reach out and grab her. Well, I would do that in real life. Now, imagine being asleep and your spouse just suddenly reaches over in the middle of the night and grabs you, puts you out of a dead sleep, or I would be running in place, or I would be cracking up in my sleep, and my wife's like, you got to stop. This is driving me nuts. I don't know what the heck you're doing, but because I would keep a dream diary and I would write my dreams down. One of our old original episodes, I'm on a roll right now. One of our old original episodes, I actually read the IKEA dream. I had it written down in the dream diary, and I read that story on the air of the IKEA experience. It's a good name for it, the IKEA experience.
Yeah.
But for a while, I was experimenting with that kind of stuff, because I was really infatuated with, what are dreams? When do we dream? Can we control our dreams? Are our dreams a reflection of our subconsciousness? because nobody really understands what's going on. There's theories out there, but no one really. We know when a person dreams. When I had my sleep apnea test, they showed me the results. So like, this is where you actually fell asleep. This is where you were dreaming. This is where you were dreaming. And then you started dreaming here, and then you stopped. Well, they can monitor that with your brain waves and your eye movements and stuff like that. So they know when you're dreaming, but they don't know exactly what causes it. There's a belief out there that when you're sleeping, your brain is downloading all of the memories you had from your daytime.
Right.
Yeah, horse pucky.
Yeah, that's one of the theories, where you're downloading your dreams from short-term memory into your long-term memory.
That's a thing, but it's not the thing.
Yes, it is a factor, and they've been able to show that by depriving people of sleep and showing that their memories don't seem to get written down quite the same way.
And we've all experienced that too. Like, things happen during the day, and we dream about them. It's a thing. Yeah.
I've always called that a subconscious dump.
It goes back to my thing earlier with thought and how my ideas of how thought works, where something is looping around inside your head. Well, if you go to sleep and that thing is still looping around inside your head, when your subconscious takes over, your subconscious is going to do with it whatever. Yeah. The downside is I quit doing it for two reasons. A, because I was starting to freak my wife out. I was also getting her very angry because she wasn't getting a good night's sleep. And it's kind of hard to when your spouse is next to you, like running in place as hard as they can, or you're like I would wake up in the middle and I would just be cracking up in my sleep, or just a variety of things. And she's like, you got to stop. So I finally did. But the other thing is that I began to discover I would wake up mentally exhausted. I would be physically fine, but I would just, for lack of a better term, I was mentally exhausted, because when you go to sleep, your brain shuts off. And that's part of the rest experience, of the rejuvenation of your body experience. Now try to imagine if your brain doesn't shut down and you're consciously aware of that. I think, the other thing that I learned is if you want to, if anybody out there is listening right now and wants to experiment with this kind of stuff, it's not real hard. The whole food, what you eat before you go to sleep thing, I'm still kind of 50-50 on that. I'm not really sure how much of that did affect my dreams. I did notice that when I ate pizza or when I ate cheese, literally pizza would affect me very much. I would have very strange, I guess, Teletubby-like dreams. I did. I would go to like this Teletubby kind of. I would have these Teletubby world kind of.
The face of Lobo. Right?
No, I never experienced Teletubbies, but you know how Teletubbies, they live in this kind of weird world with like a baby up in the sky, strange plants and stuff. I would have dreams like in that weird world kind of realm, or I would have dreams in like Candyland or like Willy Wonka kind of candy world. And pizza usually brought those about, but likewise, I would also have very terrifying dreams from pizza. Cheese, different kinds of cheese were very LSD-like experiences depending on what kind of cheese. Stilton cheese does weird things to you. Write that down. If you want to experiment with your dreams, go have some.
You mean that a fungal food might actually produce strange visions?
Exactly.
Imagine that.
Exactly. And that was like, oh, there might be something, because I said the same thing. Fungal food, fungus makes cheese. There could be something to this. But what you have to do, if you really want to learn how this works, is you have to keep a notebook next to you. And when you dream, when you wake up, write down everything you dreamed about immediately, because within 5 minutes, your brain starts to forget. It starts to think, I need to go to work. I need to make coffee. I need to make breakfast. I need to, your brain kicks into actual conscious thought. And this is backed up by people who have like sleep paralysis, and they'll wake up and they'll still be dreaming even though they're consciously awake, because that part of the brain hasn't switched off. No, I'm not saying that's what all alien abduction experiences are. Put that out there too.
We've done quite a lot on that.
Well, if people are interested in experimenting with this stuff, go right ahead. But also keep in mind, one of the other things that made me stop is you are quite literally playing chemistry set with your subconscious. Sure. You are very literally poking at the part of your brain which I'm not really sure that we should be poking at with. It's kind of like an H.P. Lovecraft kind of thing. We're on an island of loneliness and we're not meant to go very far. So do it in baby steps. And if you start having really bad nightmares and stuff like that, be ready for it, because I've also read situations where people were really getting in this and they started having night terrors. So just, if you're going to do it, be incremental about it. If you're going to experiment with different foods and things like that, Write down, like, I had a dream last night, ate pizza, I had pizza with mushrooms on it or whatever. Write all of this stuff down. It can be very fun to do. It is very interesting to do, but just be careful of what you're digging yourself into. Because as I said, you're poking with your subconscious. And I had dreams where I met myself and got into a fight with myself because I was an asshole. I don't know if I should say that on the air,
That's
but
fine.
I apologize.
Well, even with something as mild as melatonin, like they're don't take too much because they will come after you. I don't know what they are, but they will come after you.
Melatonin right here.
Yeah.
Because I have sleep problems, I also have allergy relief pills, which are literally the same as Dimetap sleeping pills, and I've got melatonin as well. Melatonin doesn't really mess with me dream-wise, but then again, as I said, it may. That's something, because when you do this, when you write those dreams down when you first wake up, you're programming your brain to say, hold on, I need to remember this a little bit longer. I need to, and if you keep doing that, you get to a point where you don't forget your dreams. You'll remember all your dreams that you have. And that's where the possibility of mental taxation comes in, because when you're sleeping, you're there for the rest. That's your body's way of making you rest and your brain rest. And if you're triggering your brain to do all this stuff and you're doing it all the time, it's like you said earlier, let's keep people awake for 24 hours and see what happens. You start to get really, really wonky about remembering stuff and doing stuff. And like, you're like, did I turn the microwave off before I left the house? You start doing more and more of that kind of stuff because your brain just says, I need a break. You will be more, you might be more irritable. Even though you got a good night's rest of sleep, you might be more irritable because your brain isn't firing on all fours. That was only my wife noticed. He's like, that was one of the reasons she said, I got to stop, because she's like, you're kind of turning into a jerk sometimes, and I'd feel it. I'd be like, just leave me alone, Just sleep? Well, I got plenty of sleep. Leave me alone. Wow. Did we go off on a tangent on that one there? Sorry.
That's fine.
Where did the road go? Huh?
Yeah, exactly. That was the road I was on. I still don't know where that road goes.
I've always had very bizarre dreams, and even I'll actually get annoyed if my dreams aren't interesting. Like there'll be times where I wake up.
Like you're throwing popcorn on the screen, like, boo!
Well, no, I'll wake up and be like...
Soraya makes his own dreams in the Mystery Science Theater 3000.
I'll wake up and I'll be like, these dreams suck. I don't want to go back to sleep because I'm just going to keep having them. And it's never nightmares, because nightmares, even if they're scary when I'm having them, when I wake up, I go, that was awesome.
Well, my ultimate goal was to try to learn how to control my dreams, but I never got to that point. And there were certain things where there were times where I learned that I was dreaming and I was consciously aware of that I was dreaming, things would start to shut down. My favorite dreams were where I was able to fly. And once I realized I'm dreaming, I'm definitely dreaming right now, I would wake up and it's like, no, I don't want to go. I want to go back to sleep. I want to hold on to this. And another way that I would be like, I've had many dreams where I've gone into bookstores because I'm a big fan of books and gaming books and things like that, D&D, all that kind of stuff, or just books in general. And there's been dreams where I'll be dreaming of being in a bookstore. And I'll be like, hey, this book is here. I can read this book here and not have to buy it. And then I'll try to read the book and I can't read what's on the pages. And the reason I can't read what's on the pages is because I'll be like, I'm dreaming. I can't read what's on the page because I don't know what's on the page because I haven't read the book. And as I realize this, I get more and more frustrated, and eventually I just wake up angry because I'm like, hey, I can cheat the system. I don't have to buy the book. No, you can't, you idiot, because you don't know what's in the book.
See, I've had lots of lucid dreams. At some points, I just realize I'm dreaming, and then the dream becomes lucid. I don't lose it, especially dreams where I die, because I'll die, and I'll be like, this sucks, I'm dead. Oh, wait, let's go back and do it differently. And then I'll be like, I'm dreaming. Yeah. Okay.
I have a video game variation on that where I'm like, oh, I'll just start from the last save point.
Yes. That's happened too.
Yeah. It's like, oh, I'll just go ahead and die now and just restart. Yeah.
See, but it's funny that your brain rationalizes your dreams that way. That is your go-to point. You approach it as though you were playing a video game. Mm-hmm. And to some extent, that's not like the movie Inception, in my opinion. The movie Inception got it right as far as the quote-unquote dream world. That is a lot of what it's like, in my opinion. I think he really did his research about how dreams work before he made that movie, because there's so many things in there that, like I recall in the movie, whenever they would hit water and they would drown or whatever, they would wake up. And before that movie came out, there was like when my wife when my wife was dying and I'd reach out and grab her. We had one dream where I was driving and the kids were in the back seat and we had a minivan and we got stuck in a flood and got sucked into it. And I watched the back of the van fill up and my kids drowning, and then I started drowning and I woke up because I was in water. Every dream that I've ever had that deals with water always wakes me up.
Yeah, but I would argue it's more of the fall, like the sense of the fall.
Correct, but when I was drowning,
like,
drowning inside the minivan, I wasn't falling. It was the water, being in the water, that woke me up. When I've had dreams where I realize I'm flying, it's a total Bugs Bunny coyote moment where I'm like, wait a minute, I'm flying. Don't look down. Oh, I look down. I'm over water.
Nice. See, in my few sleep paralysis moments, it's always been like the sensation of like falling backwards into the mattress, which sort of is why I wrote that whole falling motif, is because I feel like the sense of falling in the dreamscape is almost akin to separating the self from the soul.
You're pulling yourself back into your body. Yeah.
Does that sound sort of weird? That sounds really weird, but like, yeah, sort of makes sense.
That's what it felt like when I stepped into the guy's body, and the guy was looking at me going, "What the hell are you doing? You're not supposed to be here." I fell into the person's body when I stepped through the woods. Yeah. And I'm like, see, I'm going back to that dream again, because I remember going, dude, I didn't want to be here. I'm sorry. I don't know why I'm here. You know, I legitimately at that moment felt bad because I was in this dude's body in his bed.
The involuntary tourist in his bed.
Yeah, and I'm like, I'm really sorry I'm here. And the guy was really pissed off that I was in his body. Understandably.
Like, that's been the first time. Come on.
Yeah. Like, if I woke up in the middle of the night and there's a dude in my body, I'd be pretty pissed off too. And I knew it. And at that moment, I'm like, dude, I'm really sorry. I'm okay, bye. You know, it was like I had just, you know, I don't know how to put it, but I remember it really well. I'm back there now again, darn it. But let me ask you, how many times have you had sleep paralysis, Josh?
I could probably count on two hands. So not that often. There has been one.
That's still a decent amount. That's still over 5. So that's not a bad record.
I'm 31, so it's, I guess, like, I'd probably say about, if I had to have my feet held to the fire, probably about 7 times over 31 years.
Okay.
And like, there was only 1 or 2 of those times where I was like, what's happening to me? And one of those times was where I actually saw a figure in my room. But the other times since then, I've been so mired in the paranormal subject that I was actually able to go, oh, hello, Joshua. You are experiencing sleep paralysis.
Okay.
Let's take some time to gather some information. And you know, but having said that, entities, just the sensation that I was seeing the room, but I had this sensation of infinitely falling backwards, starting with my head, and actually in sort of an odd way, really relaxing, but also like just sort of I'm completely aware of my surroundings, but I'm just continuously falling backwards into this looping version of whatever is behind my head.
Rather like being drunk.
Yeah, except a lot less of a hangover. But in terms of like entities and that sort of paranoid experience, maybe twice.
Okay, now, in what succession? Well, my throat just made a weird noise. In what succession of sleep paralysis? When you first had your first couple of sleep paralysis, those were obviously the what's going on right now, why can't I move, I'm afraid sleep paralysis, correct?
Not entirely. I'd say the first 2 had a very sort of vague, why am I half awake and falling, sort of, but it's okay because this is a relaxing sensation.
This too shall pass. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But they were definitely front loaded, I guess is what I would say. The entity based experiences. Yeah.
Okay. So how many times did you have to have sleep paralysis before, when you awoke during sleep paralysis, you realized this is what's going on?
Like 5 or 6.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then after like the 5th or 6th one or something like that, then you start going, okay, I'm having sleep paralysis. Then you started saying, okay, I'm having sleep paralysis. I know how this works. Let's start collecting data. Was that how the process all kind of went along for you?
Yeah, it was like, oh, I'm a 14, so I should pay attention to the way
okay.
to the way this feels. In
I wish I could be that way.
Sort of way.
I've had sleep paralysis maybe 4 or 5 times. Some of those were when I was doing the dream experimentation. Again, folks, if you're going to do this, that might be something that may happen. Be ready for it. The first time it happened, I was like, I went through the, oh my God, what's going on? Terrified. I can't move, blah, blah, blah situation. The second time it was like, all right, I've been here before. I'll get through it. I'll be okay. By about the 4th time, it was like, I ain't got time for this, man. Because just hurry up and just, did you ever reach that stage where you woke up and you're like, man, not again? Waking up next to the dead deer with a mouthful of blood going, not again.
there's a learning curve, but I think it's a bit naive to suggest that there's not a geographical component to this. The reason I say that is because of my two most intense, like, holy crap, there's something in the room with me sort of sleep paralysis events happened in my living situation 2 residences ago. 2? No. 3 residences ago. God, I'm getting old. In Athens, Georgia, and it was a townhouse, and I had not had a lot of. Actually, I haven't talked about a lot of this. There was sort of an odd feeling in the house in general, but I remember one time I was talking with a friend, and I said, "Have you ever noticed?" Because the way the place was set up was like a living room, and then like sort of the dining room was sort of a hallway, dining room hallway into that loop back around into the kitchen. So the living room and the kitchen were parallel to one another, but there was like a glassware cabinet and the laundry room in between. So you could hear stuff in the kitchen, but you couldn't see stuff in the kitchen. And I remember having a conversation with a person, a friend of mine, who I was talking to him at the time, and I said, "Have you ever noticed?" And he goes, "That it sounds like people are doing dishes while we're in here watching movies." Yeah, because it was never anything overt. Because it would always be like tink, 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 psh, tink, tink. It literally sounded like somebody was doing dishes. I had another experience where I was upstairs in my room in that apartment. This was a townhouse, right? Where I was upstairs and I heard a crash. And when I came downstairs, I saw this particular scene, which was a framed glass collage that I had, which was placed above a glass top table. And by glass top table, I don't mean like a glass top over like some wood or something. It was one of those 1980s tables where like the 4 legs were like cheap silver colored plastic with some caps over them, and like the actual top of the table was glass, right?
Okay.
So like the flimsiest thing you could imagine, right? It was a glass table, and this particular glass covered framed object was hanging over that. And I came downstairs after hearing this crash, and the framed picture, which is nothing particularly special, is my sister and Maya's trip to Key West as a collage in a glass frame, was like if the table was 3 feet wide against the wall. The glass frame, the picture was on the floor, face down, 4 feet from the wall. And shattered. And my logic was that it couldn't have fallen because it would have shattered the glass table, or it would still be on the glass table. It was almost like somebody picked it up and dropped it just beyond that glass table. Still in that same apartment. There was another episode in that apartment where I felt like I had seen some odd light phenomena as well. So, anyway, long story short, or long story less than long, that was the apartment in which I actually had like a sensation waking up in the middle of the night that I actually felt like I saw an entity. And I don't live far from this particular place anymore, and I'm in that direction every now and then for gigs. So I have I had this real yin to go by there next time I'm driving by that place after a gig and say, have Have you ever had anything weird happen here? Because that's the spookiest place I've lived. And like I've lived in like a 1908 refurbished hotel. That was the spookiest place I've lived, is this non-assuming townhouse in Athens, Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
Well, for someone who says he hasn't had many paranormal experiences, that was a pretty hefty one.
This is how it is for everybody, though. This, I think, vast majority of people.
You write it off.
Yeah.
You write it off. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a vast majority of people out there, like it happens to me all the time. Sarai, I'm sure it happens to you, and Josh, it probably happens to you, where you'll get a reaction from people like, "Oh, you're one of those people. You study that crazy stuff. You're, George Norrie, and then they'll like lump you in with conspiracies or something like that. And then some people, after they've made the jokes and stuff like that, they'll pull you off the side, or they'll say, "Hey, can I talk to you for a minute?" Without you thinking I'm crazy, and then they'll tell you the story, or they'll be like, "Oh, you're into that kind of stuff," and then they'll say, blah 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 blah, and then Green Smurfs came out and stuck antennas into my head, and you're like, okay,
Everyone
I
has had this happen to them, and those who said that they haven't have written it off in some of their sort of rationalistic way.
Unless you're an extreme hardcore skeptic, which I do know a few of those people. And they'll say, like, there's one person in particular, which I was just thinking about because we had them on our show at one point, talking about they were somebody that had like sleep paralysis and things like that, which is if anyone wants to find it, Project Archivist episode 96. But that person is a very extreme skeptic, and I remember going out to dinner with them, and they were asking me about the whole UFO experience that I'd had because it was relatively fresh in my head. And I remember they were torn between they did the typical thing of, I don't think anything happened to you, but I believe that you believe something happened to you, which I hate people saying, and I have myself even used it at times, because for me that's a real big cop out. But they were like, well, how come I can't have an experience like this? I want to have an experience like this. I want to see a ghost. I want to see a UFO. And I had two. I was like, number one, no, you don't, because if you do see something like this, it's going to change everything about what you believe, and it's going to force you to go into areas that you do not necessarily want to go into, or it's going to force you to question a lot of things that you've already got a paradigm, a belief system into your head. Or what's going to happen is something like this is going to happen to you, and you're going to find a way to rationally explain it away, like I did earlier with my experience that I told you guys about. But you're going to find it's something that you're going to rationally explain away, and it's not going to be good enough for you because it's a cognitive dissonance kind of thing, And I explained to her, I'm like, the problem is you're colorblind. And she was like, what are you talking about? And I said, you're colorblind. Some people just can't see colors. You're just somebody who cannot have an experience. You're just not open to it. It just can't happen to you. And they got really pissed about that. They're like, well, I don't want to be. And it's like, I'm sure the person who's colorblind doesn't want to be colorblind either. And then that night, somebody made the joke right afterwards. There was a story about there's a saying that because dogs can't see rainbows because dogs are colorblind. And everybody goes, dogs can't see rainbows, they're colorblind. And that was something got me thinking about it. I'm like, some people maybe just can't experience this stuff.
Yeah.
They just can't because there's something they're blocking it, or they just don't have that sense. Well, here's my thing. Because I know I pay really heavy attention to media cycles and media news cycles and to advertising. And there's a lot of stuff when I see it blatantly for what it is, and it's very frustrating. The big thing going on right now, and I'm only going to briefly touch on it because everybody's touched on it and stuff, is the whole clown thing that's going on right now, to where it's the media's really blogs, online news sources are all latching on to this whole seeing clown phenomena because they know people are into it, and it's a self-perpetuating, it's working itself up to a frenzy. So people are like, well, we need to get stories about clowns on our website because that's what people want to read about, and we need to get those hits. So here's a vague story about something going on in South Carolina about a clown walking into a McDonald's and waving at people and running out. We'll run that. Well, we don't know if it's true or not. Doesn't matter. Just run it. People will click on it and read it, and we'll find out later, and it won't matter.
Right.
Because they're playing on people's this hysteria about clown sightings and stuff. And then there's another one where, like, there's a Ford commercial. There's a commercial out there that really irritates the hell out of me. to where you'll look at it. It's a pickup truck. It's a pickup truck commercial, and it shows a guy, and they're like, okay, well, if I were to tell you to cut this piece of wood, what would you use for the job? And they're like, well, I would use a saw and blah, blah, blah. Well, if you were to use this job, then you would want to use this pickup truck, the right tool for the job. And they're leaving out a lot of crucial information on it, but they're implying that the pickup truck is the job that you want. It's got the stereotypical guys wearing the flannel shirts with the puffy vests, and they're very manly, and these are the guys that look like they would be cutting wood and they would build things and stuff like that. So you look at that and you go, well, these guys are obviously people that know what they're doing. They look like they would cut wood, and they look like they know they would need the right tool for the job. So therefore, that pickup truck must be the right tool that I would need for my job. So I should probably buy that pickup truck. And on so many levels, it implies so many things. The other ones that really get on my nerves are the dumb husband commercials, where you've got the husband, it's just a total, cluster bleep, and he's always screwing everything up, and it's got the wife like rolling her eyes like, my husband is so dumb. And that's catering to housewives that go, yep, that's my husband. I should therefore buy this product because that's the kind of life that I live.
Well, sure, they want to identify with it.
Yeah, and then they got the opposite of it, where you've got the beer man cave guy sitting around watching football with his buddies, and we're going to show it in slow motion, and popcorn's flying through the air, and guys go, yeah, that's me. I want to drink that beer, and I'm a man, and I'm going to watch that football game, and we're all going to act like we're in slow motion while we're watching. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do,
But they don't think that. It's kind of an unconscious thing.
Exactly. That's the idea behind it, because it's not affecting your conscience. We did
the third man effect, right? Because bring this back in.
That's where I'm going with this. Josh, did you listen to our Fast Food Madness episode by chance?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
When we brought up the article about the slow motion cheese pull, same concept. Like when they got this thing called the slow motion cheese pull, which I call it cheese porn. When Taco Bell came out with those cheesy gordita stuffed things, and they show the gordita breaking in half really slow, and the cheese stretching out to unrealistically long proportions, and you look at that and you go, I want that in my mouth. My God, that's amazing. Or they show the Pizza Hut commercial with the pizza very slowly being picked up, and the cheese is stretching out, and
it's all like augmented with certain polymers and all sorts of stuff.
No cheese really behaves that way. I mean, if you did it really slowly, it would. But the whole time you're watching that pizza, as a test, I went onto our show's Facebook page, and I posted various pictures of cheese pizza being lifted. Gordias, Josh, did you see when I posted those? And the reactions that everybody was like, before the show came out, I'm like, this ties into the show, and everybody was like, oh, I want that pizza right now. I'm like, oh, that gordita looks so good. Look at all that cheese.
Yep.
And I'm like, my God, it works. So now I want to get a picture of like the Project Archivist logo being ripped in half and cheese like dripping between the two halves.
I want to eat your podcast.
Yeah, exactly. But yes, advertising does work. And once you realize how this stuff works, you there's a lot of times when I watch something, I'll just be like insulted by the ad because I know what's going on. And it's like, and you're like, you simpletons, this isn't going to work on me. But the cheese effect still does.
But the thing is, these people who do advertising nowadays, the people who do the media nowadays, the news, the politicians, they know exactly how our brains perceive this stuff.
It's science.
It's a science. Exactly.
This election, and I'm not going to go politically one way or another, but this election is a prime example of that.
Yes.
I have never seen so much, manipulation. And what's funny about it is people know. It's like a Lovecraftian story. People know, and they're voluntarily saying, yes, I'll go along with this.
Yeah.
Whatever their candidate is, yes, we know. We're still going to do it anyways. Our minds are made up, blah, blah, blah. And there's so much of it going on in this election.
And to sort of refine that thought, like the way that groupthink narratives have emerged from like, no, they're not the lesser of two evils, or no, it's this person's worse than the other. Like it's super evident that there's this sort of like weird groupthink thing happening, to try to sway the undecided to one side or the other. That is in an election that is really honestly not that.
Yes, I'm bad, but the other person is worse. Yeah, that is the thing that I'm getting from this. That the overall message, when you stand back and you look at it, the message that I'm getting from the candidates is, yes, I'm bad, but this person is worse.
Yeah.
And you should vote for me. I know I'm bad, and but this is, you should vote for me. And it's not even like, and everybody knows it. Everybody knows that that's how they're being manipulated to, and everybody's like, yeah, I'm totally cool with this. Yeah. Yeah,
I don't know if it's so much that they're cool with it. It's that they don't think there's any other option.
That's another weird thing too, because I am one of the people that believes that there should be some kind of third party on the table.
Absolutely.
And
maybe even a fourth.
Yeah, it's how things in Canada are, but we're stuck in this. I got to be careful because I don't want to go into a political conversation, but we're stuck in this weird two-party system, and people just do not believe, no matter what, that they can vote for that third option.
Yeah.
It's a really weird, like, you have the red or the blue pill, and that's the only ones you can take.
But every single election is like, you can't vote for the third party because this is not that election. The next time vote for the third party. It's like, just really?
Yeah, there's never a time to vote for it, and it's just like, it's really weird. It's another one of those things that people willingly accept. It's like, there's a third party option there. You can pick that third box. No, I can't. Why? I don't know. I just can't. Yeah, you can. No. Do you like the third party option? It's like, here's Coke, Pepsi, and orange. I like orange, but I'm going to drink Coke. Well, why don't you drink the orange pop? I just, we'll just drink the orange pop if you like the orange pop. No, I got to have Coke or Pepsi. It's got to be one or the other. And I really am not a cola guy, but I guess I'll juice Pepsi. No, drink the Coke. The Coke is better. Why don't you drink the orange? No. It's this weird thing, that is it is like this. I don't know what kind of Jedi political mind trickery is going on there, because people and they ration away why they can't vote for that third option. It's been like this for time ever.
That's it. It's not a new thing.
No.
I mean, just like the fact that all my life I've heard about how politicians never keep promises, but yet people will argue over the promises that their current running politician is making.
And the third party is always the crazy one. It doesn't matter who the third party is. The third party is always looked at as that person is nuts.
Yeah.
I remember Ross Perot, way back in the day, people were like, Ross Perot is out of his mind. And he was doing pretty well up until he wigged out about the CIA invading his daughter's wedding or something like that.
Which may have actually happened.
Yeah, possibly. But I remember his big speech was, the giant sucking sound. That was his big thing of all the jobs being sucked down to Mexico if all of this stuff were to come to pass. And aesthetics aside, to a certain extent, he was right. Yeah. But he's crazy. He's crazy. We can't. Every third party option that's ever put out there it's crazy. It's to a point now where just people that go third party is crazy. Do you know who it is? Doesn't matter. Third party's crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
and that's my thing, is that every time there's an election, somebody says, well, this is not that election. Next election, please. But there's never this election.
It's weird how the level of programming works.
It's also made to seem like the most important thing in the world. So you can't use this election because this election's really important. And in reality, as long as one of the two groups gets elected, they're just figureheads.
Yeah, figureheads for the party for the most part. Yeah.
Well, not even just for the party, but look at what Obama stood for and look at what George Bush stood for. They were very different. Yet the foreign policy didn't change a whole lot between Obama and Bush, which says to me that they don't really have that control.
You need to be real careful because the hate mail that you might incur from people by bringing up by mentioning names of parties and people in those parties, could be asking for a lot of trouble.
But what I'm saying is when you look,
it's
go on.
It's both cola. It's both Pepsi or Coke. It's still cola.
It is.
I was going to say that it's a very common, if I remember correctly, a very common Rich Dolan talking point where he says that if you want to know what a fifth Bush term would look like, it would look like an Obama term.
Yeah, and I believe he said that when he was on my show as well. But Obama socially is very different. Different social policies got passed under Obama that never would have happened under Bush.
Very true.
But when you look at the big picture, when you look at what's going on in the world, Obama went in with stopping this and closing Guantanamo. He had the right idea, but I think once he got in there, he realized, oh, I don't have the power to do that.
Yeah, I'll agree with that to some extent. But it goes back to the manipulation of putting those ideas out there to try to get people to believe in those ideas.
Yes.
I had a guy on my Facebook page that when the last presidential debate was going on, the very first presidential debate that just happened here recently, which I guess was the most watched presidential debate in history. And he put the statement of, I don't care if Donald Trump sacrifices a baby in the name of Satan tonight, I'm still going to vote for him. And, and he was like, that's just, that was, and I was like, there's the mindset right there. That's it. At this point, he's like, I just don't care what the heck happens. I'm going to vote for this person. And it's like, why? Well, that's the person I think I'm going to vote for. It's like, well, do you actually believe in what that person is saying and doing, or are you just voting for them because that's the figurehead that person put up in the party? And the sad thing is when I ask these kinds of questions, I either am accused, and I do it with both parties, because again, I try very hard to walk that middle road.
Oh, so do I.
And I think a lot of people, realistically, when you step back and get away from all of the mudslinging and the Facebook and the social media, most people, the average Joe, I think, is that way.
Yes.
They're just, they just want to, they got to go up and go to work in the morning. They just want to do what they feel is best. They're going to do what they're going to do. But then there's these other people that get caught up in this cycle of you must be this way, you must be this way, and okay, I will be that way, and they become like mindless drones, and it happens with both parties. And when you see that kind of thing happen, you're like, whoa, wow, and you're a Stedford wife.
I am.
I know, odd reference. I'm sorry.
I am always interested in why people believe what they believe, and this goes for everything. But it especially goes for politics, and I'll talk to people about politics, and I don't get into fights with people about politics because I don't have a strong belief one way or the other. I want to know why I'll ask someone, well, who do you think is better? Why do you think they're better? Because I want to understand the mindset that presents it going one way or the other.
Exactly.
Personally,
exactly.
I don't just... I'm with you. I think there should be a third or even a fourth party. Let's get the Green Party and the Libertarian Party out there and give us some more options.
Well, I think that if I had to identify with a party, the closest one I would fall in line to would be the Libertarian Party. But I don't even like to say that because there's some bat bleep crazy stuff that the Libertarians are even into that I go.
The idea that doctors should operate in a free market is sort of.
Well, the problem.
Discouraging.
The problem.
Well, whatever it is, there's just some weird stuff in there that I'm like, you know what? I'm all for. You've got about 85% of me, but it's that that other percentage that, I can't deal with you, man.
Like getting rid of the minimum wage is one of the things a lot of libertarians will talk about, and I understand where they're coming from with it, but at the same time, if we lived in a culture where there were more jobs and there were people available to fill them, that would be a great thing, because getting rid of the minimum wage, it would be competitive and so on and so forth. But unfortunately, we live in a world where there's more people than there are jobs, which means the companies that are employing the people have the power.
And that's a strange thing too. Recently you posted something on Facebook and I was like, I want to go off on a rant on millennials, which I just recently did on another show a couple of days ago. Somebody had me on and said, I want to talk to you about this because you seem to have very pointed opinions about the whole millennial thing. But one of the discussions that we had is how the economy is changing so dramatically. And this tied into why, people don't always understand millennials. And part of it has to do is with the economy thing. Right now in this election, you're hearing a lot about jobs going down to Mexico and jobs leaving the country. There's a greater thing going on here where jobs are going away everywhere because automation is very quickly replacing everything, and that is our big thing that we have to worry about right now. There's an app coming along that replaces a job. There's a different way of doing things like Uber that are coming along and replacing taxi drivers, and Uber has already said we're going to replace our drivers with self-driving cars as fast as we can.
It's a second industrial revolution,
Yeah. So at what point? And I brought this up to a friend of mine who's a very hardcore conservative, or at least they think they are a conservative. And I said, and we had this conversation. I'm like, these jobs are all being replaced. And she's like, yeah, that's the idea. And eventually it's going to get to a point where we shouldn't have to work for everything, where everything is just going to be provided. And I said, I don't think that's going to happen. It's just, we
That's
might
the
get to a
problem.
point.
It also sounds like the most dystopian future ever.
Yeah, and I'm like, well, then what are people going to do for money? And then it was like, then the I guess, I don't know, the socialist or whatever you want to call it kicked in, where it's like, well, we're not going to have to worry about money thing because everything's going to be provided for us.
No.
And I'm like, no, people are still going to, you have to have some kind of an economy.
There's a good documentary on that type of an idea, and I cannot remember the name of it, but they make a very good case for it. But the idea would be that everyone is provided with what they need to get by, and then you can focus on arts and things like that rather than having to worry about day-to-day survival. But under the current system, there's no way the people in power are ever going to let go of that.
Yeah, but at the same... Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that it's the same mistake that a lot of archaeologists have had, that we decided to interface with spirituality after we had all our day-to-day life problems covered, right? So like, oh, well, we'll satisfy like who has to fill up our cars and who has to serve us food, but and then we'll like relax and evaluate the problems of the universe or the giant questions of who we are. But that seems to like really rob life of its meaning in a very general, very specific sense, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I see where you're coming from.
And there's also, like any other stereotype with millennials, there's like all millennials are like this. No, they're not.
Oh boy, here we go. Hold on.
All baby boomers are like this. All Generation Xers are like this. It's like, no.
Go to Google. One of you guys go to Google right now. Load up Google and type in why do millennials, and then stop right there and watch how many different things pop up.
Oh, I know.
One of them will probably be why do millennials hate America? One of them will be why do millennials not want to work?
Another will be why do millennials work too much?
Exactly. Which I posted those two articles in that thing that you're talking about. I don't want to go too much into it because I appeared on another show, and whoever's listening to this, like, go over here, they already hear this. But I think part of the problem with this whole millennial thing, well, for one, every generation has a tendency to look at the next generation that's coming up and want to criticize them. Again, this is one of those things that's you had it happen with the hippies, the baby boomers. You had it happen with I was generation, I think, well, at least a couple of us are Generation X. And we had it happen with us. And I remember one of my mom's boyfriends saying, you know what, one of these days you guys are going to be running this country, and that's really scary. And I'm thinking, well, you ran the country, and it didn't turn out real well either, and now we're kind of, in a way, doing that to the millennials, and everybody's picking on the millennials. Well, millennials do this, millennials do that. I don't think anybody really truly knows, or they do, but they don't know how to interpret the data. And the thing there is that this is the first time ever in history where we now have computing power and analytical power to be able to analyze everything that everybody does.
Yes.
Everything, the websites you go to, the food you buy, the music you listen to, the styles of clothes that you buy, the jobs you work, where you spend your money, how you spend your money, how long you're on the internet for, what you do on your phone, the kind of apps you download. Everything now can be analyzed and quantified and data mined. And this next generation, the millennial generation, like I, as well as you guys, remember a time when the Commodore 64 was the computer, and the Amiga was the graphics computer that everybody had to have, and the internets were, bulletin board ones that you would go hang out in.
Yep.
And then chat rooms came along, and, we remember a time before the internet. I had a pager. I was like, wow, this is amazing. Somebody could page me a number, and that told me I got to call them back. Kids nowadays, but kids, the millennial generation has never known a world without complete connectivity.
Right,
they have never known a world without the internet. They have never known a world where there's not a way of getting in touch with one another. They have never known a world, for them, yes, our data is, everything that we say and do is being analyzed. That's just the way life is. Whereas we're a little bit afraid of that. We're like, I don't really want somebody knowing everything that I do. And I don't want somebody knowing what websites I go to. I don't want anybody knowing anything about me, because Generation Xers have a habit of being distrustful of corporations and big government.
Yeah, well, that's because that's when they kind of moved in.
Exactly. The next generation, those millennials, everything that they do is watched, and they know it, and it's because it's a known thing. They really don't care that much. But at the same time, the companies that are gathering all this data, trying to look for a way to market these people, are trying to grab at whatever trends they can get their hands on. It goes back to the how can we market to these people? So they'll see these trends and data, and without thinking about what the hell they're talking about, they'll put up, millennials don't want to work, and then they'll put up, why don't millennials take vacations and stuff like that. And it's like,
and you sort of casually mentioned something that really frightens me, which is the fact that as somebody who is like just maybe a sub or supra, depending on how you define it, millennial, the fact that a lot of millennials don't care that they're being supervised.
Well, what can they do about it?
It's part of daily life.
But they've also grown up that way, and if you grow up with something, you don't necessarily. That's just the norm.
It's the programming, yeah, and you're not gonna. It's like being in the Matrix. You're not gonna question it, and it's just
exactly, yeah.
They'll be more careful. Of course, they're going to, not, I shouldn't say that, but theoretically, they're going to be careful of what they put out there and what they do and things like that. Like, that's one of the reasons why I use a pseudonym. I mean, my real name is Shannon, but that's one of the reasons why I go under the whole Roejen thing, so I can have a moniker and a degree of privacy. So I created this fake name and this fake thing that I do. So if somebody wants to data mine that, because that is a different aspect of my life. That's the Roejen thing that's my show and junk like that. But at the same time, just like you guys, like Josh, outside of your books and these paranormal shows and stuff like that, you go to different shows and play tuba, and you play Freebird or whatever, and then you've got a life. You see what I did there? But you have a life completely outside of this whole paranormal world. So to a certain extent, you have a separate life, and that separate life could be data mined in a completely different way than your other normal life. So that's like this whole Roejen thing that I do. Yes, it's still me, but it's only a part of me. And if they want to data mine, what I'm posting on Facebook and stuff like that, they can, because and I don't care, because that's not entirely my life. And there's certain things that I won't put on this profile on Facebook. There's things about my personal life that I won't discuss or stuff like that. And that's the way it is for both of you guys as well. So,
absolutely.
And they can data mine all they want. They're only going to get so much. They're only going to, like, for the Roejen thing, they're only going to get what I want them to get, because I know what I'm putting up there. I know if I like the Ramones, they're going, oh, he likes the Ramones. We'll market ads to him for the Ramones greatest hits release or whatever, and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, I know you're doing it. Well, look, here's an ad blocker. I'm not going to see it, So go right ahead, But, it's since we're older and we're consciously aware of that, we can kind of protect against it. Whereas the next generation are like, yeah, it's, I'm being data mined. I understand that, but I've got a car payment I got to make, so I got to get them to go to work. So, anyways, but that's, my thing about the whole millennials. It's like everything is stacked on them, and everything is held in, and they're held to these kind of unrealistic standards. And it's kind of like that line from the David Bowie song, these children are very aware of what they're going through, And
so here's the thing. They're bastards, but they've been shortchanged by the boomer generation.
The problem there is that the boomer generation, from what I've seen in a lot of instances, doesn't want to accept the responsibility for that shortchange. Yes. The attitude is, hey, we've been shortchanged, so that's kind of what you want to do.
Get a job.
Yeah, and then they don't understand that the millennial generation, it's like, yeah, I went to school, I got this degree, there is no job.
Yeah.
That's a problem. And the generation before doesn't want to look at it that way.
Which I think is linked into a larger conversation about, like, the fact that trade occupations are less appreciated in America than they should be. Yes. Because I'm gonna have a hard time. Like, my mom and dad's landscaper is retiring at the age of like 35. So
Well, go on.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying I can't discourage that lifestyle. It's.
Why? Because he's made enough money to retire, or?
No, because he is set. His business is set up. He can retire and like do minimal management stuff from his home. Like, kudos to him, right?
Yeah, that's awesome if you can do that.
And when you talk about like Facebook, mining data and stuff, when I post stuff, I don't necessarily post stuff I agree with. I post stuff that I want to get other people's takes on. So if you really go through my news feed, you'll find contradictions galore because I'll be like, oh, I'd like to see what people think of this, or I want to see what people think of this, like the particular article on the millennials, which got a bunch of different comments on it. So if they try to data mine my post, they're going to be so confused.
Yeah, if I get that way a lot too. Like if people were to go through and they were like, say something were to happen, and somebody had to go digging through my computers and stuff like that, they could paint a picture of me very easily, be like this. They could paint a false picture of what I am very simply. They go, okay, here's a guy who posts about UFOs. Oh, he's posted some stuff about governments, and I don't like Alex Jones, so I've gone on a few Alex Jones rants and stuff. But if you're data mining and you see Jones' name pop up, you see UFOs. From the outside, without a whole lot of real work, you could go, oh, this guy's a government conspiracy nut. That's why he flipped out, did what he did. He's into the paranormal and he's into all this stuff, without actually getting a real good grasp of what I am or what I think or what I feel. They could just very simply look at it and go, okay, well, he fits a profile. We'll just slot him into that profile, and that's it. And it's probably the same for you, Soraya. They would look at that and be like, oh, okay, this. Or they would be like, oh, this guy's really into magic. He's a black magic guy. Well, he's probably a Satanist. That's the data. That's the danger of the data mining thing out there. And a lot of people are like, well, I'm not really worried about that. And it's like, yeah, but you can get fit into a profile model very simply without people fully understanding what the heck they're doing. That's kind of the scary aspect of it. I'm also like, there was a guy we had on the show. His name was Joseph Matheny, and he was one of the pioneers of a lot of this stuff, or so it's said that he was. There's some debate as to what this guy actually did and what he did not do, but we got into a very good conversation once about how if enough people were to wake up and realize what was going on, because the system goes both ways. Yes, the system is data mining you, but they're data mining you so they can market to you.
Yeah.
And if you're aware that you're being data mined so you can be marketed to, it's always really fun to go and pee in the pool.
Sure.
So it's like, we need to get a whole bunch of people together and just start Googling fish sticks. Let's Google fish sticks. So then Google will go, wow, these people are really interested in fish sticks. Get a hold of Gorton's Fisherman or whatever, and see if we can drum up some sales ads and start marketing these people with fish stick ads, and see if those ads start showing up in your Gmail and stuff like that, or start showing up on Facebook. Because once you realize, oh, I'm being gamed, let's have some fun with this and regame the system, and flip it back, and just start Googling the weirdest stuff or bringing up the strangest stuff in conversation. Recently, there was a thing going around. I had a buddy call me up, and he was like, yeah, I'm going shopping, erectile dysfunction, to the store today to buy some Pepsi, erectile dysfunction. And the gas on the corner was like $2.19, erectile dysfunction. I'm like, what are you doing? He goes, don't worry about it, blah, blah, blah. He sends me a email later on saying, me and the wife were talking, and then we noticed that ads started popping up in our email and on Facebook and stuff like that had to do with stuff that we were talking about on the phone or whatever. He goes, so I got this crazy idea that if I called you up and kept saying erectile dysfunction, that I might start seeing more erectile dysfunction ads, because he thought that they were listening for keywords in his conversations through his phone or something else, which on the surface I'm like, wow, you're really paranoid. But then within a couple of days, I started seeing that floating around Facebook and all that about how, and it was a big story about how Google or whoever it was had to come out and say, no, we are not listening to your phone conversations for certain words and stuff like that. But I didn't know what was going on at the time. My buddy called me up and like every other word would be erectile dysfunction. I'm like, what are you doing? Is this a joke? Am I not getting the punchline or something like that?
But you know what?
He's like, no,
that actually happened while we were talking here on Skype. Joshua mentioned, what was it?
Erectile dysfunction.
Huh?
Erectile dysfunction.
No. You mentioned the soda. What was the soda you mentioned?
Soda.
Coke, Pepsi, or
no,
Orange Pop?
It was a weird brand of soda. He was thinking of Faygo because we were talking about the clown thing.
Oh, yeah, no, totally. It was Fanta.
Oh,
Fanta, yeah.
And like a minute later, a Fanta ad popped up on him.
Yeah, so the Insane Clown Posse thing is
Faygo Pop.
Is Faygo, right?
Yeah,
and I mistakenly said Fanta, right? I mistakenly in our conversation said Fanta, and then the next website that I went to had a pop-up ad for Fanta.
How often do you see pop-up ads for Fanta?
Never.
How weird is that?
Never. No, it's not weird at all because it's targeted weird ass marketing. Like that was the moment for me when I said, "Holy crap, this is real." Like this is not a paranoid delusional thing. Like the ICP likes something different than what I said, but like I got a Fanta ad because coming from my microphone was Fanta, and I got Fanta. You know, it was.
So that's what I'm saying. We should get a bunch of people together. Like you should do this as an experiment, Soraya. Tell all of your listeners, come up with something really obscure, like goldfish or swordfish or something, and just say, for the next couple of days, randomly go out and Google this word a couple of times a day, just here and there. And then take note of what ads you start seeing pop up in your stuff. Now, for me, like Facebook, I use an app called Facebook Purity, which gets rid of everything, and Facebook hates it. Because the only reason I'm on Facebook really is for my show and to talk to people I've met through the show, and that's how I get interviews and all. It serves a viable function in my life. I'm not on there just posting pictures of here's me eating a sandwich. But what I've installed this app called Facebook Purity, and Facebook hates it so much that you cannot type the words Facebook Purity. If either one of you tries to go on Facebook right now and send me a message saying the words Facebook Purity, it'll completely block it. You won't be able to send it.
Really?
Go ahead. Yeah, try to go. One of you try to go on and send me a message, not private message, just open message. To say put Facebook Purity and try to tag me in it, and then send it, and it won't have it. It won't do it. It'll block it. They've completely got those words blocked.
Something?
No, it doesn't say anything. It just will not allow you to send the message with the words Facebook Purity in it. So they have to call it FB Purity or Fluffbuster Purity. They've changed it many times. Did it work? Did you do it?
Yeah. So I typed that and I pushed post and it disappeared completely.
Correct.
Wow.
Correct. It's real, and I'm not. I'm in no way. Hold on. Yeah, nothing's popping up on my screen right now. Yeah, I posted it. I posted it. Posted on my timeline. Okay, it did it that time, but it didn't do it as one word.
Okay, so one word, yeah.
Try doing it as one word. I probably won't let you do it. So there, but the reason why is Facebook doesn't like this because it blocks all of that sidebar app on your right hand side. All of those ads all go away. You can have it set up to where you get those weird little notifications. Those will go away. Like myself, I'm tired of election coverage right now. I can't stand politics. I'm so tired of seeing it. That I used. There's a feature in Facebook Purity where you can go in there and say, block these words. So I put Trump, Hillary, Democrat, Republican, any words that had to do with the election. That'll work in Skype. It'll work in Skype, but because Skype is not owned by Facebook, it's owned by Microsoft.
But I posted it on your timeline too.
Okay. Let me see. I'm not seeing it. I'm not actually the one you sent me before appears to be gone now, too. Nope, that's still there. Yeah. Yeah, it's working. That's weird. Usually it doesn't let you do that. They had it blocked for the longest time. And the reason why is because that cuts away all of Facebook's ability to market to you and sell you stuff because that's how Facebook makes their money. So I installed this app and now I don't have it.
At the same time, that's fair because they are giving you a free service and they're looking to, they need money to survive on it.
Correct. So I understand why they do that. Okay, you can stop now.
If you're gonna spam me for the next
I get it.
month and a half with Facebook.
I got to be careful with this. I got to be careful because I don't want to get booted off of Facebook. But no,
I'll delete a couple. So now the experiment has passed. Yeah. But I've always wanted to do this where I get a large group of people and just say, all right, let's see if we can tweak with these people and let's see if we can kick back a little bit and let's just see, how much Discordianism we can cause by messing with their algorithms. And because a lot of this stuff is set up automatically where if you type something in, they'll already have the advertiser there waiting. And if they see that keyword pop up, they'll just start running ads for you. Like there was motorcycle grips. I went and searched for motorcycle grips. And then every time I'll go to a website, Google ads will be in the bottom of it. And it'll be like motorcycle grips here at this price or whatever. Yeah. So
it's kind of like, I wonder if, like, if I start doing searches for fish sticks and I go to these websites, am I going to start seeing ads for fish sticks in the bottom right corner through Google ads? And at the same time, I want to do it just weird enough to where Google's like, how do we market? Okay, all of these people are searching for fish sticks. We need to figure out how to market to all of these people. Then they start, at that point, you're just messing with them.
No, it's you got to search for like Amish fish sticks. Excuse me.
Something, it's just something really obscure. So at the other end, the people that are monitoring this are going, wow, this is weird. All right, all right, we need to get some guys on this right now. You go to Starbucks and get us some coffee. I want you to go over and contact these companies. Are there people that make them? Yeah, there are. Okay, contact that company. Tell them we need to get them to buy ads and we'll make them a deal. Because there's definitely a viable market for Amish fish sticks. Sir, what are Amish fish sticks? I don't know. People are Google searching it, so therefore it's important we have to market to them.
Our algorithms are out of control.
Yeah, like I've done it. I actually have done it with like horse head masks. And then for a while I kept seeing...
Nice.
Yeah, I have a horse head mask. My daughter got me one for Christmas one year, but for a while I was looking for them to find how much they cost, and I started seeing these ads for horse head masks pop up. I'm like, that is such a weird, obscure thing that I'm like, okay, all right, how can we have fun with this? How can we pee in the pool a little bit here?
I love that Soraya just shared his most used words on Facebook, and they include black and death and radio and live.
See, we're doing it right now.
Demon, Ithaca.
It's fun to do this kind of stuff, but the average person isn't going to do this, and I wish more people would do stuff like that.
Well, I just did that thing because I saw Joshua had done it, and I went, I wonder what a difference there's going to be before my most used words versus Joshua's most used words.
The thing is, I don't think, well, it might. I don't understand entirely how this technology works, of course, where I don't think it's going to work with a meme like that. That's just a picture with all the words in it. Whereas if you were to actually type the words on the screen, then the catcher would go, oh, okay, those are the words that we're looking for. Like with me using Facebook Purity to block out all the political ads, political memes still through. So I still have a little bit of it coming through. But a lot of the noise is gone since I went on there and did that, which I highly recommend anybody. I'm not paid by Facebook Purity or nothing. If you're a Facebook user, go out and download this app. It makes the experience so much better. It gives you so much more control over your Facebook experience.
My most used words are also pretty much all related to the two radio shows I do. And I post a lot more for the music show because I post throughout the night while we're on it. I post playlists. We're on 2 syndicated stations I post about. So you're seeing, Last Exit, Lost Radio, WVBR, et cetera, et cetera.
Now, using those words, do you find that you have ads pop up related to those words, or have you never?
My ads don't make any sense at all.
Exactly.
I don't think they have any idea how to market to me.
Erectile dysfunction.
The only time they seem to know to market toward me is when I look for something on Amazon or Newegg, and about 50% of the time I'm looking for something for a computer customer, and suddenly I'll start getting ads for that stuff, and I'll be like, it wasn't even for me,
Exactly, but that's the algorithm that it runs on.
Right.
So, man, we've been recording 2.5 hours.
Yeah, we should probably bring this to a close before everyone hates us.
It's been a fun show. I didn't really know what I was going to talk about getting on.
A little bit, guys. Yeah.
Well, you guys have been recording for longer than that anyways. You were on Greg Bishop's show before this.
Yes, we were.
So you guys have been recording for like 4 hours or something now?
Something along those lines.
So my question is how does it feel to use crystal meth?
I've been doing
it feels like a general Where Did the Road Go show.
Yeah, pretty much. And you got to figure too, I've been doing The Last Exit for the Lost, which is 6 hours long since 1994, every single week. So 6 hours, I mean, granted, I'm not talking that whole time, but we do talk quite a bit, and and I'm functionally doing stuff that entire time. So it's 6 hours pretty much without a break. I'm used to it. This is like, okay, if I had to talk just myself for this length of time, I think I'd end up with nothing to talk about. But with 3 people, 2.5 hours to me doesn't seem that long.
And I'm very good at taking shows into weird and strange directions completely at random. I am the ADD podcaster if I'm let to go. So.
And for anyone who has missed it, you are Roejen of Project Archivist, and that can be found where?
www.projectarchivist.com. Our podcast can be found on iTunes, pretty much any place, Stitcher, any place that any kind of podcast aggregator, you can find it on there. We've been around for about 5 years now. We talk about all manner of strange, weird, not necessarily ghosts and paranormal. We talk about it, but it's not what defines us. And every once in a while, we like to go off the rails and just do shows of complete ludicrousness, like we did with our fast food freakout show that we had last week. That was all about weird incidents involving fast food. Yeah, that's become one of our favorites, and we got another one coming up. We did one show called This Year in Fecal Matters, which was all just about poo related incidents and bodily fluids, and we did it as a joke, and I really didn't want to do it again because I felt that we'd lowered ourselves to a really low standard, and immediately everybody's like, no, you must do this again. So that one's going to be coming back up again soon. We go all over the place. We try to have fun, but ultimately we do try to teach people stuff, and we try to give people a different look at, odd and unusual topics as much as we possibly can.
And you do an awesome job, and you're one of my favorite podcasts.
Thank you very much. I really, really appreciate that. I really do.
I'll second that in terms of podcasts I listen to on a regular basis, because some of them I get fed up with, but Project Archivist is one of those that I will come back to week after week.
You're also one of the only ones I listen to every episode of. I don't just go, okay, what sounds interesting, because I don't know what you're doing sometimes, and I'm just like, all right,
we don't
let's
either.
See. Yeah, well, that's it, and it makes it more interesting to me.
We literally don't have any idea of what the show is going to be like sometimes until it happens. We really just, the train just kind of goes, and we just try to keep it on the rails for the most part, and we were talking before, we did a show with a woman who had synesthesia, which is not paranormal or anything like that, but it's a very off the wall, strange topic, and we go all over the place, and we try to give people something different that's already out there, because there's a million ghost hunting shows, and there's a million UFO shows, and there are podcasts that do this far, far better than we do. So we try to be different as much as we can.
But I will say that your Chased by UFOs double header was exceptional. It was really great.
I love those found. I've got a few more of those coming up. The old found audio shows, we do those not so much because we're trying to be woo-woo, like the Chased by UFOs show. Those shows are important to me because that in a way is kind of paranormal history or UFO history.
It was a reserve select show in the way that a lot of like bourbons are like a reserve select. Like, this is what has been chosen for you. Like, this is the creme de la creme, and it set a mood, and I thought it accomplished that goal very well.
Well, the UFO Reporting Center released, another thing is, most of the stuff that I release out there, it's all available out there. It's not like we have, we've got some secret source. We always make available where we found it. Mm-hmm. But the UFO Reporting Center released all of their really old audio recordings, and there's just a ton of them. And as I was digging through them, I'm like, well, I don't want to just release recordings of people calling into the show talking about UFOs. I want to be able to have a theme to it. And I kept running across this theme where people were calling in saying, yeah, I'm being chased on the road by these lights in the sky, or this has happened, or I was chased here. And those stories, I felt they were genuine. The people that you're hearing talking are freaked out, because back then they weren't playing these on the radio, and those people that were telling those stories when they were being chased, I felt that whether or not something happened to them, they believe something happened to them. And they're pretty chilling and crazy stories. The two women I found funny that were being chased when they were driving the 68 Mustang, that was a long meandering story. And it was like, well, we had to go get ice cream. And I remember it was chocolate chip ice cream. And I remember I liked Breyers, but Sylvia didn't like Breyers, and she wanted me to get blah, blah, blah. And that story had a lot of that in there. And I'm just like, okay, get to the point. But it was a funny story. And those shows, like the John Keel lectures that we've played and all those kinds of things, we put those out there so people that are it's important where people know where their roots are, and there's so much in the world of ufology and stuff like that. People forget they get into ufology and they think it's all like, it's all like Richard Dolan and stuff like that. It's like, no, way back, this was something different. People back then truly were looking for answers. They weren't trying to sell you a new book. They weren't trying to do some kind of crazy, the reptilians are out to get us agenda. And I think it's important that every once in a while, these things need to be revisited and people need to be taught, hey, this is where this came from. If you're into this stuff, you need to know your roots and you need to know your history, and you need to know, this stuff is very important. Even if you don't believe in UFOs, it still has a historical significance because this is where it all began.
Sure.
I like to put those out there because they're rare lectures that people don't get to hear very often. Some people don't like them. Some people, I don't like your found audio shows. They sound like garbage, or, it's just not what I'm into. And okay, well, tune in next week. We'll have something else out, completely different.
Right.
So,
and it is free. So.
Yeah, it is free. Yeah, and I also do have a Patreon page where we try to throw up an episode or two extra every month, or try to do something a little bit different. We're not in it to make money. We don't make a lot of money off Patreon, but it does help pay for the bills and the show and stuff.
Yes.
So,
All right. Well, I guess we're going to bring this to a close, and I thank both of you guys. It's been an excellent conversation.
Thanks for having me. This is always a lot of fun coming on here. I'm always like, what are we going to talk about? Then when the show's over with, I was like, wow, we covered a lot of ground.
A pleasure as always.
Thank you, sir.